I am here with Jaws, as well as Thupa, and to a lesser extent, Michi. We're all here to talk about Hyperion, the Dan Simmons novel from, I think, what was it, 89, early 90s?
I think it's 93.
He called Michi a dwarf.
Definitely 89.
89. It's a classic of science fiction, which I had not heard of until Jaws recommended it. Jaws is quickly emerging as the champ of recommending shit to me because it's always great, and I always want to talk about it. Jaws.
I think I had one thing that didn't work out for you so far, which was Mavaru Penguin Drum. But besides,
I like Penguin Drum. I haven't finished the second season yet, but that I finished the first season so quickly is a testament. It's a pretty good show.
Okay.
I just need to get back to it. But Jaws, if you can just talk a bit about what attracted you to this book, why you like it, and we'll start going into some general ideas. I'll be right back.
Yeah, okay, so as the instigator of this whole thing, basically I haven't read that much science fiction. I'm like more used to watching science fiction. And not that long ago I thought that I probably should get into this. Like I read Dune, and Dune was kind of disappointing in comparison to how much it was hyped up. And Hyperion was another one of the books that kind of was mentioned in the same way. I'm not sure if I could call it a classical science fiction book because it's not that old. Like Dune is quite a bit older than Hyperion. But Hyperion,
you could definitely fucking mention it as classical sci-fi at this point.
Yeah,
I was curious about like what its standing was among sci-fi guys, because like I've read I read much more fantasy, but very little sci-fi, and I was looking at like internet like charts and stuff to see how people rated it, and it seems to be around the same pedigree as Dune actually.
It's
like
one
I
of
see
those
it I see it recommended on like
lot.
every sci-fi chart, but near like the middle. It's not like super important. Apparently.
Think about it like this. In anime terms, it's Monogatari. Essentially, everybody's kind of heard about it. Nobody has actually read it.
Monogatari is infamous, but I find it kind of strange that, in comparison to Dune again, that Hyperion is not mentioned that highly, or well, maybe highly, but not that often. Like it's not on the radar as much as Dune was.
I agree. That's why I hadn't heard of it. And I heard of Dune like years and years and years ago.
I'll jump in there by saying I feel kind of the same way. I read Dune a few years ago. I'm not entirely sure why other people I follow had been talking about it, and I just was intrigued. I will say Hyperion, I definitely liked it a lot more than Dune.
Yeah, me too.
And one thing about Dune completely coasts on the world building. Dune does not have very strong characters. There's a few in there. I really like Kynes. But for the most part, Dune really coasts on the idea of the sandworms and Arrakis and the whole AI are evil, which in a way you could almost see Dune as having some continuity in that way.
I felt like Hyperion definitely seemed like it was inspired by Dune, but yeah, like you're saying, like he was like, I don't know. I feel like most sci-fi novels probably after Dune were inspired some way, but yeah, it was like, I'm gonna Canterbury Tales this bitch and get characters in here.
Well, part of the issue with Dune is it casts such a long shadow over the rest of science fiction that it's really hard to even separate post-Dune sci-fi from Dune. Anything where a planet has its own intrigue is going to be compared to Dune in some way. One thing about Hyperion, though, it has the characters in Hyperion are so much stronger than the characters in Dune. Like, it's not even close.
I'll take your word for it.
In Dune, as you said, it's very much about the setting. It's about a large world, and the emphasis is mostly drawn around it, and around the Iraqis. And the characters are a vehicle for us to experience that. Where in the fucking Hyperion, pretty much the entirety of the first book is just them explaining characters to us.
Yeah, it's like it's the main focus of the entire first book is the characters and their stories, and I really love it.
Poo-poo.
Yeah, yeah.
Goddamn Thupa.
I really love it how the individual character stories are used to give us these tiny bits of world building in such a natural way without like front loading it or turning into massive exposition. Like every and each one of the character stories focuses on like a different part of the world building. I feel like, for instance, the second story, the soldier's story, focuses on the military aspect, how the military has evolved since the leaving of Old Earth and things like this. And the first story, the priest story, focuses on religion and how Christianity has basically declined, even though they have like I think they have a whole Christian planet, basically. Yeah, and they all focus on different things in a natural way, so it does not become overbearing, and the characters are always front and center, and they are written greatly.
I
Well,
think
they are. Right,
Yeah.
but I really like how smartly the first book is definitely structured, because
Yes,
first story has quite the fucking twist to it.
yeah,
It
many
introduces
have
us to the world, and it goes right after our introduction to the story, where the prologue is essentially just saying, "Hey, there's gonna be people. There's a spy story. Let's forget all about that for the moment. Here's a priest going on a fucking pilgrimage. Oh wait." He's about to become a literal fucking martyr, and we're gonna have Christian fucking allusions to the Bible, and then we're gonna fucking make it brutal as shit, and now let's introduce you to the fucking sci-fi of this place.
I think it's strange that the first story, the priest story, is rather disconnected from the other characters, and it's such a unique introduction to this whole thing, because first of all, the priest story is not really the priest story; it's the story of Paul Dury, I think his name was, the Jesuit priest, and Hoyt, the actual priest character, is just retracing his notebook basically and reading it to the other people. So it's funny that that it's basically not even his story.
I feel like they put that he put that first. I think he was structuring it kind of like an album where like you might put one of the stronger, if not the strongest songs up front just to like hook people, and then you've already like hooked them, and then you can go into the more quiet stuff. Even if the first one didn't have that much to do with the plot at large, it was such a gripping short story that you're just like, fuck, I'm gonna finish this shit.
We have not read the other stories yet, but
Good point. but just the second one.
Yeah.
I was like, this ain't as good as the first one. So
No.
Here's the thing
and
about this. One thing I want to stress about is that when I think about a piece of media, especially something from the past that's not very recent, is the context around it. And the context around something like a book, you need to understand that there was a certain level of engagement you could expect from audience. And recently, when you read a book, what you often have is a hot start where you'll start during some kind of event that's proactive, that's engaging, and then now that you have grabbed the audience, you can continue on with introducing your main characters, with introducing the story, world, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Where when Cantos was reading, the culture was a lot more lenient towards a longer opening. So what you could do is you could give a cold opening and set up the larger premise of the book without any action or so on, and then you can give a long first introductory story which doesn't necessarily quite fit with the rest of the book, especially in its tone, but it has a very gripping later part to it, which can in turn serve as that big bombastic opening you would have in a recent book.
Yeah.
I will corroborate that. And earlier you guys were mentioning or debating, is this a classic? I think it is a classic in the sense that it is in the canon. If you want to be a serious sci-fi fan or a serious sci-fi writer, you are expected to read Hyperion. And that's what classic historically kind of meant. It's a group of books. Many are very old. I know it's not exactly right. But to be an educated person, to be someone who is up to date with the culture, you're expected to read these books. And I've said many times, I think the strongest works in a medium, or within a subculture or a genre, I guess, are the ones that are not commonly known outside the fandom, but within the fandom, they are universally praised. In the anime world, Hunter x Hunter is the one I point to. People on the street, they know Dragon Ball, they know Sailor Moon, they might know, I don't know, Detective Conan or a few things. But
Naruto, man.
Naruto. These days would be Naruto.
I've textualized.
But but those are not the shows that anime fans would hold up as the greatest ones ever. But if you do something like Hunter x Hunter, random people on the street,
not the greatest one ever. Textualize.
Random people on the street are not going to know Hunter x Hunter, but anime fans all know Hunter x Hunter and all love it. It's the works that once you go within the gatekept fandom, everyone loves. Those tend to be the best ones, I think.
Mostly, yeah.
Inferno Cop.
Inferno Cop. And in terms of the structure of the work and the characters, works in a few ways. Real quick, the contrast with Dune. One thing about Dune is structured almost as a historical epic. When you read Dune, it's like you're reading the founding document of an ancient civilization. And even when you read Dune, it's framed by Urulan's history book she wrote later about Paul.
Yeah.
So it's almost framed as a historical text, which also serves as a religious text in certain ways. So it's harkening back to a very ancient type of media. Hyperion is explicitly an homage to the Canterbury Tales. And it's packed with references to poetry and stuff like that, so the format almost plays into the themes in a different way. Where Hyperion draws on some similar themes, it's very religious in its way, kind of like you would expect from something about pilgrimage and a reference to that. One thing about the structure that I think they were really smart about is every character gets something. Every character gets a little bit of ownership over why we care about this book.
Yeah.
The priest, he isn't. It's
Except
not even really
Braun
his.
Lamia. Fuck her.
No.
Except Braun Lania, fuck her. The priest that we see, he's not even the priest from the actual story. It's actually really adorable. There's a part in the story that the priest is reading where the priest that he's talking about drops a line saying, "Oh, Father Hoyt, he seems like a good guy. I wish I could have spent more time with him before I went into the jungles of Hyperion." Which was adorable. I like to think that Doré just kind of added that like after the fact. But
It was slightly confusing going into the Soldier's Tale because a Priest's Tale is told first person because he's reading from a document. But then Soldier's Tale is told in third person. So is what's his name?
Kassad?
Kassad.
Yeah. Is Kassad referring to himself in the third person as he says it?
I found it
even
weird as well.
I thought he was in first person.
Did this. Kassad grabbed the fucking thing, then he felt this. It's the whole time. He never says, I felt this way or whatever.
I wish it was in first person, but sadly it isn't. I think it makes it weaker.
Kassad is just weird. What can I say? You know, what good pussy does to a motherfucker.
I want to propose an idea here, right?
Thupa, what's your idea?
Well, here's the thing. His story is much about the fact that he was, in some ways, tricked by, by the pussy. You know what? By the pussy. His story is very much about him separating himself from his past and then trying to act on it in the present. Does that make any sense?
You're kind of
Yeah,
saying
to-
that the
to-
person
to-
who he's describing is the old Kasad who used to be like a military warrior, and he's recounting his tales rather than speaking about himself how he is now.
That's an interesting take.
That is an interesting take. I don't know what to do with
Sounds
it.
a bit
Oh,
copy, but
Hello?
I could buy
well.
it.
No?
while Thupa's on the phone, I'm going to finish my thought. But I was saying, every character gets something, and every character gives us a reason to be invested, and every character gives us a reason to respect them. The priest, he's not very involved, but the priest tale, it's very thematically powerful. It's really interesting. It's the start of the book, and it ties into a lot of the emotions and fears that Hyperion will play with throughout. Martin Silenus, he's just cooler and smarter than everyone, and he knows it.
Well,
He doesn't count. He's almost in his own world. Like, he's the secret main character of the book, or not so secret main character of the book. He fucking tells people, basically. Saul Weintraub, he is holy and morally righteous, basically more than every other character put together, where just no one
Yeah.
can touch Saul. Once Saul tells his story, you almost feel like other characters have a hard time looking him in the eye. Like, it's just not even there. Kasad is the only real authority figure who has serious power. He has probably the worst story, I would say, or it's one of
Yeah.
them. But Kasad basically... But early on, Kasad is established as he's one of the few characters who has actual pull with the power structure of Hyperion. And later, when they get more into the traitor arc, it's basically a question like, is Kasad going to stop this motherfucker or not? Because no one else is even in a position to do it. He's the only one who even brings a gun to Hyperion, if you don't count Braun's little pea shooter.
Since you've mentioned the traitor arc,
Hold on, Thupa. Let me
and
finish the
Michi-
thought. Oh,
Right.
okay. What, Thupa?
Okay, then I'm not gonna let you finish the thought. Fuck you. So anyway, since you mentioned the traitor arc, at the very beginning, the CEO Gladstone talks to our counselor, and she says there's a spy there, right? And then they begin recounting their story because they try to find common ground and, well, to possibly help them determine who the spy is. Michi, who is the spy? Tell me. You haven't
Basing
heard
it on the vast knowledge
and,
I have.
and I guess that shit from the
two
start.
of the
So
characters.
Well, the structure of the book kind of lends itself. I didn't guess. I didn't know. God damn it, Michi, you're right. Goddamn poo-poo.
Yes.
goddamn poop.
Goddamn poo-poo.
We actually forgot to set up the whole premise of the book.
I'll take care of that in just a moment, or you will. To finish,
I would
yes.
let you.
But yes, Kasad is the tough, manly man of the group. He's the only one with real power, except maybe the consul. Braun, even though she's one of the lamer characters a little bit, she's the only one who knows anything about the AI.
Yes.
And her knowledge of the actual situation going on is way bigger than anyone else's. Braun is basically the only character who has a fucking clue what's happening, except for the consul.
Yeah, the
and
consul.
the consul has the knowledge of the AI, but especially the ousters, who are
Yeah.
the people starting the conflict on Hyperion. Where the two lamest characters, basically, are also the only ones who know what's going on.
Counselor wasn't lame. His story was really cool. And
It was-
Braun Labius was just a fucking lore dump.
I like
Kind
Braun's
of.
story.
I hated it. I was
I have
so
mixed
bored.
feelings. I have mixed feelings. When Braun started, when I met Braun, my immediate reaction was her story's going to be really long and it's going to be almost boring. Like, it's not going to be bad, but it's going to drag a bit, and it kind of did. I still am glad.
So
it's
far, she's the resident tsundere.
Yeah.
I
also-
would not call that woman a tsundere.
She's not a bad person. She's just
Tsunderes
all
are
she-
bad people.
Yes, they are.
No, only Green is.
Well, the only person Braun is actually mean to is Martin, who completely fucking deserves it.
Yeah.
And he is the worst fucking person you could ever meet.
Okay.
No, he's the cute romantic lead, and she's being a tsundere. Come on.
Okay. To very quickly
Fuck,
summarize the
shit, piss, God, goddamn motherfucker,
That's all of that guy's dialogue. True.
asshole, pee-pee, and poo-poo.
Have you heard of Keats?
Jaws, really quickly, do you want to just very quickly summarize the framing device before we get into the characters a bit more?
Yeah, we can almost set it up as a joke. Like a priest, a soldier, a tree templar, a detective, a consul, and a writer/poet go on a potential suicidal pilgrimage.
Walk into a bar.
Highly probable suicidal pilgrimage, from what I can tell.
That's basically the setup.
It's not looking good.
It's not looking good?
Can't wait for the punchline. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The punchline has to be determined after the book has
Can I just say,
Jaws, are you finishing the intro?
Yeah, that basically was the intro.
Okay. I will add a little context, just saying, on the alien colonized world of Hyperion, there is
Which
a
houses
creature.
the Shrike.
Yes, there's a creature called the Shrike, who's just a big guy made of razor blades, basically, who has control over time. He's been causing shenanigans, and while that's really important because his time travel powers imply something about the nature of the universe, and he's one of the great mysteries that humanity has discovered after they developed, long-range space travel, there is this clan of space barbarians called the Ousters who are coming to Hyperion, and they're certainly going to just butcher everyone. So the Shrike cult is allowing what will probably be its last yearly pilgrimage, where they allow people to go to the Shrike, ask it for a wish. It seems like the Shrike giving wishes is almost a rumor, because it's not like we meet anyone who ever came back.
I can spoil this. It never comes back up again.
Okay. Yeah, so far no one gave any hint that he granted requests or even understood human speech or whatever. He's just a force of nature going around doing fucking shit up, and people are gonna ask him for a fucking wish.
And he is called the Shrike because the Shrike, also known as the
Lord of Pain.
Yes, in the book, the Lord of Pain, but in real life, the Shrike, also known as the Butcher Bird, is a small carnivorous bird that takes mice, crickets, other small critters, and impales them on the thorns of rose bushes and other thorny bushes to store them for later. And the Shrike in Hyperion is a big metal dude, and he grabs people. He has a giant metal tree next to his lair, and he impales them on the spikes of the tree and just leaves them there. He kills people in other ways too.
I had a logistics question about that.
And because the tree exists outside of the time, they suffer there forever.
Yeah, it's a metaphysical
I didn't even think
tree.
of that.
They did mention that the people on there were being stabbed in the future and then going backwards. I had a question about that, though. Yeah. Okay, I thought that from the covers and stuff, I thought the Shrike was a big giant, but he's only 3 meters tall.
Yeah,
which isn't a giant. But the tree is 200 meters tall. So how is he impaling people on the top? Does he just throw them up into the air and land them on spikes?
Maybe he goes back in time. Maybe he goes back in time to when the tree was little, puts him on it, and lets it grow again.
That can't
He's
be
the
true.
Lord of Time. You can't.
Yeah, but initially the tree wouldn't have as many branches necessary to impale, and then people would still have their feet on the ground. They could ostensibly walk away from the tree without.
This is the least realistic aspect of the story. You're right, Michi. Thupa, go.
Or does he grow?
Here's the thing, Michi. It's something that is alluded to within the first book. I'm now mostly finished with the second one.
Okay.
But
the Shrike's tail.
I think you can make that conclusion because, Green, as you can corroborate, what is, or Jaws, perhaps you can help them out. What is the main goal of the Technocore in this book, right?
I don't think we should go into that.
We're not going to completely spoil the concept of the universe.
Go ahead.
No.
Yes.
Look, no.
For me, it's almost equally fun, being told by someone the thing and then discussing it than it is reading about the thing. It's a trade for trade of different experiences that I'm gonna just tantamount.
I'm gonna just say this. I think we're gonna do. And Jaws isn't that worried about spoilers either. I think we're gonna do.
I've read the first 2 books.
I haven't read the second book yet. Okay. I have. No, not stories, the actual
I'm only using context.
No, I know. I understand. Okay. I know there's 4 books.
Yeah, but we're only talking about the first book. I think we're going to have a non-spoiler section, get through the first few stories, and then we'll talk about the end of the book
And then
later.
kick me from the
All
car.
right.
Okay. Do you guys want to talk?
Largely, I just want to tackle the thing that Shrike is a very powerful creature that exists outside of the time. It essentially has a constant stream of people coming there. It does fucked up shit to those people, and then nobody sees them ever again, if ever.
Yeah.
And people worship him for some reason.
And people worship
Of course
him.
you would.
Around this creature has formed the cult of Shrike, which is a religion which exists in the fucking internet in this world.
Which is way bigger than Christianity, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and because this religion has a prominent godlike figure at the head of it, it essentially pushed out and made every other religion in the world irrelevant.
Which it memed itself towards the monopoly of religion.
Jaws?
Yeah, which kind of leads into the first story, the priest story, because the reason why the priest story happens is because there is a Jesuit, is he a bishop? I forgot his rank.
Just a priest, I think.
Okay, a Jesuit priest who tried to basically revitalize the Christian belief, and to do this, he fakes evidence on a planet that Christianity existed before it existed on Earth. But of course, his little trick is discovered, and he basically self-exiles himself to Hyperion, and that's why he ends up there. So basically, the existence of the Shrike and the decline of Christianity is the cause for Paul Dury to end up on Hyperion, which is then later followed by Lena Hoyt, the actual priest who we meet in the book.
I think let's get into, I want to talk about the Shrike at some point, because I just find the Shrike fascinating. Maybe we'll talk about him after we get through the priest tale. But yeah, let's start getting into the priest story, because this is interesting. Like you just said, he was exiled and embarrassed. In this world, Catholicism is implied to only number in the thousands at this point. And one aspect of Hyperion, which is interesting, religion is, they don't get too explicit, but Hyperion is a very religious book in a very abstract way. It's hard to define.
Theology is like the main part of it.
And religions have
Theology
been totally...
is a main topic throughout the entire series, I think.
Kind of.
Well, I haven't
very...
gone through the entire series, but from what I've read so far, it is a very prominent part throughout all the text.
I think of theology as an attempt to systematize religious inclinations. Like, do they get into it that much? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, we have a sea of a religion.
That is how how Paul, the priest, like he's like an extremely scientifically minded guy, even though he's like so religious and stuff. Like he thinks about everything and writes everything down in like the perfect systematic objective detail, you know, and then like it's like he's compartmentalized like his faith into a different little section, and mostly he's like totally scientific in his approach.
But it's something I would like. That's a really good point, by the way. But it's something that he has to essentially do at this point, because the Shrike cult, the most prominent, most dominant, ever-growing religion in this setting, has a scientific proof of essentially a deity that they have. And every other religion now has to play on their grounds. They either have to prove that they are not irrelevant and come up with proof for their narrative, or be considered redundant. And it's something we see in the priest's tale, in the scholar tale, and so on.
Talking about Catholicism just a bit, you mentioned the scientific aspect. That is one thing about Catholicism, where it's a complex relationship. Catholicism has a long history of encouraging rational inquiry, scientific exploits. It wasn't even really until Galileo that split started becoming more of an issue, where the Catholic Church's approach was always, we want to learn about the world. And later on, they brought in Aristotle, who was, at least the mentality that leads to science was basically the precursor to that. The issue with them was, we want to learn about the world, but we always want to keep it contained, and we want to keep our beliefs compatible with each other. And we're going to use priestly authority to find a way to smooth out the crinkles. And Catholicism had more and more difficulties going on as it went forward. And I think this world, it's not so much about religion as it is religiousness. It's a sense that there's a greater mystery out there in the world, and we want to inquire after it and try to figure it out, while also understanding there's a level of wonder there that we can just never penetrate. Which I think plays into the more traditional Catholic worldview. About the Jesuits, in early modernity, the Jesuits were almost like the Peace Corps. In the age of exploration and stuff, the Catholic Church would send Jesuits out to integrate themselves into countries that had not been Christianized yet, and they basically became locals, and they became like a landing ground that people went in. There were little Italian men living in China with queues under the Qin dynasty long before anyone else was allowed there. The Jesuits had an incredible ability to ingratiate themselves with local leaders, establish themselves as, trustworthy community figures, and slowly open a door that Christianity could creep in through. And Father Duray decides to revive this beautiful Jesuit tradition with the Bikora, a group of people who were on a fucking plane that crashed in the jungles of Hyperion. They've been there for 300 years.
Please refer to them as idiot children instead of people.
Yeah, but
I love how
Let's call them medical retards.
the father
retards.
Father Duray insults them constantly.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing. He calls them fucking half-witted baby bald idiots.
Father Duray.
I just love it because it's like it's his way of venting, right? Like he's in such a fucked up situation. Like the only joy he gets is from calling these idiots what they are.
Although he's so frustrated.
Although that gets a little more complex with time. Jaws, very quickly, do you want to just summarize the basic events that puts Father Duray in these shenanigans?
Okay, so basically, I already mentioned that he gets exiled. Well, I think actually he self-exiles. And I forgot how, but at some point he has heard about this mysterious tribe, basically, of the Bikura, however they are pronounced. And he is trying to find them on Hyperion. But to get there, he first has to cross a very dangerous terrain. What's it called? It's called the Flame Forest.
The Fire Forest.
Yeah, with the Tesla trees.
Yeah,
Tesla
they're exploding trees and electric trees that channel lightning, so it's extremely dangerous to get through. And
just like real Teslas, am I right?
It's almost like they called that for a reason.
I meant the car company, Thupa.
Oh,
You didn't mean the science.
that's how they colonized the fucking planet, with a car.
That is how Tesla died. He tied himself to a car and got electrocuted to death.
Jesus.
He was
That's why
fucking.
there's so many CIA documents about him.
He was tied up to the exhaust pipe for several years.
He's a windscreen wiper.
Okay, please continue.
Oh wait, it's a Tesla. It doesn't have an exhaust pipe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Not funny, it's just true. Jaws, please continue.
It's just true.
Yeah, it's true. So he has like a guide, and I think it's 2 people. Is it 2 people at first who accompany him, or is it just one? I don't remember.
It's one at the critical point.
He's a black guy, right?
I think he's a local, like a
I
local
thought he was an
tribes
Inuit.
person.
I picture him as a
I just have a
Mexican
mental
man in a
picture of him as a black-
sombrero,
a black
but I
guy.
don't.
What? We're taking clothes off now?
Thank you, my shirt, but you won't let Jaws fucking talk.
Wait a second. If he'd had the sombrero, he would have been immune to the electricity. It makes no
Let
sense,
Jaws
Green.
talk so I can get
You know it's illegal. No. It's a sin amongst the Bakora to show your naked flesh. you
Right,
fools.
right.
Neither of you are of the cruciform. Kill them, make them die a true death immediately.
Yeah, so he has to get through this forest of death, basically, and it can only be done at certain times because it gets more dangerous depending on the season. And like here's like pretty much the kind of I would say normal experience of traveling through kind of uncivilized, unexplored territory, like the conquistador kind of thing. Or explorer kind of thing. He gets sick with some weird ass sickness and has to be nursed back to health by some woman. I don't think we ever get her name or anything, but he writes everything down in his notebook. And eventually, at some point, when he's sleeping and his guide is sleeping as well, his guide is killed in the night, and he wakes up. Poor Dury wakes up, and like next to this guide of him whose throat has been slit, and that kind of fucks with him because he has so far seen no sign of any other civilization, the Bikura or anyone. But now he knows, okay, shit, someone is here. Maybe it's the Bikura. I have no fucking idea why they killed him and not me. And eventually he does find the Bikura. Green, how far should I go? Should I just tell the entire story?
I think this is a good stopping point because we're going to talk about the Bikura now. We're just going to kind of talk about it. We're just talking about it for a while, then talk about the twist. I will say, going through the Tesla forest, one image that really stuck with me is they put these little rods in the ground around them to redirect the lightning.
I'm going to use my hair to cover the nipples.
Thank you, Michi. But yeah, to direct to direct the lightning, and they periodically break. So they start with around 15 of these things, and it takes several days to get through. And every night they hear lightning hitting the tent, and they just look at the rods. And every now and again, one just snaps because the lightning was too strong. And so they start with 15, and they get down to like 6 or 7 as they move through it. And one, that's a really compelling visual. Two, that establishes that there's a tiny chance that Duray could maybe leave, but it would be a really fucking bad idea to try. And also, he doesn't want to leave that much. He's kind of going to this place to die on some level, or at least just pitter out some of the remnants of his life. But yes, but yeah, it's great. When he walks into the clearing, a bunch of short, squat, round-faced figures in creepy black robes run up to them, and he explicitly says, it looks like these people have Down syndrome.
He does. He says mongoloidism.
He calls them many things.
He does. And he's
that would not be appropriate today.
My favorite moment is that moment where he's like, and I'm certain we were both assured of each other's stupidity.
Yeah, it's such a perfect moment.
I mean, in a way, they're right. Duray tries to do stuff constantly that, from their perspective, is just completely stupid.
And then he starts to morb.
He gives them little trinkets, and they just drop them on the ground and walk off like stupid idiot.
Well, the Bikura, they refer to themselves as, what is it, the 4-score and 15?
The 3-score and 10.
Three score and
70 of them.
There's the exact number of them, which, Jaws, stop me if I'm wrong, this is the exact number of people that were on the plane that went there in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or it's implied at least. And these people refer to themselves by the number that they are. And Duray tries to establish contact, but he's just constantly amazed at how uninterested they are in anything. When they're not eating, they literally just sit on the ground and stare into space. They have no interest in anything but eating and very menial activities like shitting or cleaning themselves. In terms of getting...
And sometimes they go to a temple.
And sometimes they go to a temple. The Bikura, it's weird, they don't really eat meat. One time he saw one eating meat and he went, oh, I guess they eat meat. But it was a squirrel or something that broke on a branch and fell, where they only eat things that are so easy to get. They basically just grab whatever is within arm reach and just eat that.
Yeah, they are mostly like gathering.
Even for water, they go to like a stream 300 meters away, I think he says, and just drink from the river instead of bringing any with them.
Like, they have no concept of efficiency or making things.
No,
they're just completely stagnant. They're just alive for no reason.
They don't eat everything raw. They don't cook anything. They're just wild animals, basically.
He tries to give them trinkets. They don't care. He eventually tries to examine them. It takes a very long time for one to say yes. And when he does, he finds
only when he's of the cruciform.
Yeah, later. They find, and when that happens, he finds they have some kind of cloaca, like they don't even have genitals.
He says they have, like a urethra and a cloaca, very vestigial. That's it.
Yeah, they're just
shit
weird.
And poo and pee, yeah.
Where he sees them as retarded in some way, but they're not. They don't even have normal bodies. Like, they're just deficient in every way. Although it's weird. When they go to get food, he eventually realizes the Bakura can climb like squirrels. Like, they're actually incredibly athletic in the context of living in the jungle, but it just doesn't even occur to them to do that for any reason other than going to the grotto that's near their village. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like instead of naming them stuff like Alpha and Beta and all that stuff, I really feel like his true names that he called them would all have been far more insulting.
Like Mo and Curly.
Yeah, fuckwit, yeah.
Shemp is the real bad one.
Shemp is exactly. You would call them like, or call
I
them
just
like
hate
Hitler
Simon.
or something. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Fucking Simon. Absolutely no different from Betsy.
No.
Literally the same face.
I forgot how he actually got to the temple. Was it because they saw his cross?
No, it's because they go off to do something else, like to gather food all as a group somewhere else, and he knows they'll be gone for a few hours.
Yeah,
and even though he has to go in secret because Alpha told him that if he went down there, they would cut his throat open, and then if he did it again, they would kill him again.
And they said it so matter of fact, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
That was actually genius. Because when Duray is talking to these people, people in quotes, one thing that he notices over and over again is it's really hard to get them to answer a question unless it is completely simple. You can ask him, where is the fruit? And the head Bakura will say, that way, and point at it. But if you try to ask them a question like, what is your favorite color? Like, they'll just kind of look at you.
Yes.
Or if you say, like, if this person did this, then how would this person feel about it? And he just, like, stares at you blankly, like he doesn't get no fucking clue what you're saying.
It's like they have no object permanence, basically.
And this was brilliant because if you look into people who deal with, like, low IQ individuals, one of the classic ways that you can recognize someone who has, like, low functionality in that way is they have a really hard time with hypothetical questions. Like, if you ask someone with 70 IQ, if yesterday you did not eat breakfast, how would you feel about it? They will say, but I did eat breakfast yesterday.
And it's a very complex question, though.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Okay. Michi, if you had not eaten breakfast yesterday, how would you have felt about it?
Well, I don't know because I did eat my breakfast yesterday. I would have to go back in time and not eat my breakfast.
Like the
what constitutes a breakfast?
Yeah, exactly.
Define. Okay,
in fact,
you know what?
I didn't have any breakfast yesterday, actually.
Maybe psychologists just ask retarded people really hard questions and just don't realize. I guess they need it. Okay. But when he asks Alpha, the head Bakura, that question, or no, he asks Alpha the question because he notices every day at a certain time, they all scurry down this huge grotto and climb down the vines. They're gone for a few hours, then they come back. He asks them probing questions about what's down there. I want to know. And they won't really tell him. Then he asks Alpha, what would you do if I went down into the grotto? And Alpha, who normally
struggles with it,
who normally has issues talking in multiple syllables, looks at him, thinks for a while, then goes, we would all hold you to the ground, and I would grab a sharp rock, and I would hit you in the neck repeatedly until all the blood was on the ground, and you died the true death. And he says this whole thing without stopping smiling or blinking the entire time, and then he just goes back to eating figs on a rock somewhere.
but after that he says, "And if you did it again, we'd have to kill you again."
Oh,
which is even
a
funnier.
good point, Michi.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I just love the visual of them blankly staring at each other, thinking that the other one's a moron after he's just said that insane thing.
Yeah.
Another brilliant bit of foreshadowing is that he's frustrated that they have like a kind of like a babble fish from Hitchhiker's Guide. They have like universal translators basically, and he's confused that the translator will sometimes say the cross and sometimes say the cruciform.
Cruciform and crucifix.
Yeah, and it's very confused. He's very confused about it, and so are we for like most of it, and then we find out why, and it's a Lovecraftian nightmare.
Yeah.
Probably should have said, when Duray shows up, he asks them, why did you not kill me when you killed my friend? And they say, one of you will know the exact line, but it was like, is it you follow the cruciform?
You are of the
cruciform.
You
Of
are
the
of
cross?
the cruciform like we are.
No.
And
He's not of the cruciform. He's just of the cross. He follows the cross, but he's not of the cruciform.
You follow the
that's
crucifix.
difference.
Oh, the crucifix. Right.
They say the cross in my audiobook.
Okay.
I'm not sure entirely.
Okay,
But
they
whatever it
do
is.
mean his necklace. It's true. That's why they didn't
But-
kill him.
They point at the crucifix he is wearing because he's a Catholic priest.
Yes.
And the whole time, Duray keeps wondering, what the fuck could that possibly mean? Like, I just don't get it.
Yes. And he
I
gets
tried
stuck
to look up
in-
Father Duray, and it says Father Dumbledore.
Okay. He gets stuck in one of the many pitfall logic loops that you can get stuck in with the Bakura, where he asks them why they killed his friend, and they say so he could die, and then he died because they killed him. Then he gets stuck in an infinite time loop. And that's when he loses all his patience and just starts calling them fucking idiots for the rest of the book.
In a way, the Bakura are like secret geniuses. Because, like, their brains have expelled all non-critical information, so to them, every answer is totally obvious. It's like, why did you kill him? Because he would die. They're not wrong.
No, it's true. He tries to phrase it in multiple ways, but yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, this is like one of the best Star Trek episodes that never was, basically, where you have this
There is one like that kind.
There are multiple, yeah, where it's like taking bits from multiple episodes of different like situations you get into with first contact of, yeah, exactly.
So Jaws, do you want to talk about the turning point where Duray makes a decision and what happens thereof?
Makes a decision like his decision to
When
to
he
go down.
goes into the thing.
Yeah. To
Yes,
like,
Jaws, if you want to talk
Yeah.
about that for a moment.
I can
Just
try to do that.
narrate us into the next conversation real quick.
Yeah. So after he's been living with the Bikura, who also don't let him leave, he gets to know that at certain times they go and gather food, and in this time frame he thinks that he can get down the vines to find out what's below in the space where he's not allowed to go, and that's what he does. And what he finds is basically, like Green said, a grotto, but you could also call it a sort of temple. And in the middle of this temple is a giant cross shape. I think I'm not sure if it's like the walls that's like in this red stone, something like sparkling stone, or if it's the cross itself.
The cross is like encrusted in jewels.
Yeah, it's
and
like
there's also like a red kind of crystal window that lights the place up like some big cathedral.
Yeah, it's like very, very reminiscent of an actual church, but like way older, not exactly.
It's like a natural formation that just happens to be shaped like the interior of a St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah. And Ree thinks at this point that he has found the thing that he tried to set up on this other planet, basically an indicator that Christianity might be older than Earth itself, that it might have originated at some other place. And now he thinks this is it. And of course he's overjoyed, and he returns to, like, he climbs up the vines to the plateau. But the thing is, the Bikura find out about this, and they have a discussion what to do. Yeah, will they kill him, or will they do something else?
Can we talk about the temple that he found for a bit, partially because the language he uses is a little vague. When DeRay goes down there, I got the impression that something happened. I got the impression that there was some entity or some occurrence. Something happened that was like quasi-supernatural that made him believe. Did anyone else get that feeling at all?
I think it was just the
I didn't get that idea.
The experience itself. It was basically wish fulfillment for him.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just so powerful that it was a spiritual experience for him, because it basically what's the word? It affirmed his faith, basically.
Yes,
he found
exactly.
what he was looking for, or he thought that he had found what he was looking for, and that's why it was so powerful and so spiritual for him. But I don't think there was anything supernatural at that moment that comes later.
And the big thing
Thupa.
about that temple is that, you see, he faces this society of, sorry, but idiots. People
It's okay,
who
I
are
wouldn't mind you saying that.
people who are
So
mentally
relatable.
deficient. Yeah, it is. By the way, I chose the color of my t-shirt to match yours.
I'm so glad you're wearing clothes again, Thupa. You're like the Bakura, am I right? Hey, did anyone notice something?
I already made that fucking joke.
Okay, well, I made it
anyway.
louder. Ha 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 ha. Okay,
And he's
Thupa.
the host. He can cut your audio.
Exactly. I'm the Lord of Time. You can't stop me.
He's the Shrike, and we're the people on his tree.
Specifically, a little slight emendation to Jaw's very good summary. The reason they specifically want to kill him is not necessarily because he went down into the temple, because they don't know that, because they're stupid. It was just coincidence that one of them saw him with his shirt off. They noticed he was not of the cruciform. They were going to kill him. Then he mentions that, and they're like, well, shit. He has been and prayed. Yeah, specifically, he did pray at the cross, which was one of his big mistakes.
Yeah. And the big thing about that fucking temple, as I mentioned, is that this is a society who cannot construct a hut, realistically.
Yes.
And when he comes there, there's this temple that probably predates the people that are there, that have no means of constructing it, that they come to, and that reaffirms his faith and his a discovery he has forged, which led him to the exile, that the religion of which he's a part of could have predated people here.
That actually
predates everything. Like, he tells from the state of dilapidation and how many, like, the stairs of the temple and the floor have been trod to such a smoothness that he infers that it must be many millennia older than Christ or any of that stuff. Like, it's so worn down by worship that this is like a fucking like pre-Egyptian even, probably.
It's a relic of far gone past.
I have a counter theory about that. Maybe the Bakura are just so uncoordinated they drag their feet a lot when they walk.
and formed seats and a cross from the erosion.
Maybe they've probably been licking those steps for a very long time.
Well, no, the implication really seems to be that the temple was found by the people by the 70 originally crashed there, and you know what happened after.
To bring it back to what Michi was saying is that at some point he discovers this temple, he goes there, he has a prayer, has all of these revelatory experiences, and intends to come back with that information to essentially to the base, to the society again, and then lead people back here.
He specifically records everything. Like, he films it, he takes photographs. Yeah.
He fucks up hard because one thing that is very consistent about the Bakura is that they always wear clothes. They're always covered in these cloaks. They show no nudity. They don't take them off when they bathe, when they shit, when they piss. It does not matter. He has not seen them without clothes once.
Yeah.
And he takes off his shirt and gets seen without one. And you know what they see? They see that thing, the reason he survived initially, is that he had a cross on his body. He had a little chain or whatever.
Wait, was it
with
pressing
a
through the
cross.
clothes?
And when they killed his guide, they took off his they took off his clothes, as he said in the diaper, and they groped him, and they found this cross on his body, and that's why they left him.
Yeah.
They felt
Alive.
it through his shirt, and they thought it was a real cruciform.
Right. And now they see him, and he's not wearing one.
Yeah.
And their eyes bulge out of their heads, and they go.
And they flip out.
They do. They don't take it well. And in a moment of desperation, Paul Dure yells, "I do follow the crucifix. I have worshipped at your place." And when they're about to kill him, he yells, "I could become of the cruciform. I could join you," even though he doesn't really understand what that means at that point.
I am a crucifix,
And this,
you are a
and this,
crucifix.
and this blows their tiny little bald minds.
All
And they
70
take
of them,
days to decide.
all 70 of them holding a council continuously, applying 100% of their brain power. It takes them a very long time to just come up with the
They
concept.
hold a council.
We'll take him. The Thane we have, we'll put one on him too. Like, that was a very, very hard concept for them to grasp.
I was going to say, I have a few slight, even though I love this short tale, I have a few questions that seem to be slightly unanswered about this. Firstly, the whole thing about them not getting naked. That just seems to be something that conveniently works in the priest's favor. Because there would be no problem if they were all naked, because they all know each other as a cruciform. They would just see each other's cruciforms. They don't even have genitals. But they're all clothed, and so is he, so they can't tell that he doesn't have anything.
Actually,
so I'm not sure why they would have that tradition, especially
the
when they
way
don't
I
have
can
any
see
others.
it, I understand that because it is a sort of hereditary culture. You can see it in people who have come and degraded as they integrated with their local fauna and kind of gave up on their cultural upbringing. You see these pieces of their initial culture that have no longer the meaning that they had initially, but are carried on as a tradition nonetheless. And so what I can see happen is that people wear clothes because we don't want to be naked.
Yeah, I mean,
We
it is
are
convenient.
embarrassed of it.
They are convenient for the cold.
Some of us. I'm not
yeah.
included in that.
No, I understand. Like, they must have noticed, like, oh, it's less cold when I have this on. I don't get scratched by plants and stuff. So
I
guess
don't
I'll
think
keep it on
that's
all
the
time.
case. It's just that people who initially came there wore clothes all the time, and as they became dumber, the tradition lost its meaning. It just became a thing that they do religiously. Well, not religiously.
I think Thupa's completely right about that. I think the Bakura had a bunch of habits when they were human, and just they got transferred down. I think that's probably the case with the worshipping at the crucifix as well. They probably used to do that, and now they don't even know why they do it anymore. They just go
That
there.
makes sense to me for like the huts and stuff. Like, oh, those were built by the humans before they became idiots, and they're still standing, and they know how to repair them slightly. Sure, but like, wouldn't other stuff have carried down? If they know how to make clothes, like I think making clothes is more difficult on a intelligence scale than cooking food.
I don't think they know how to.
Why wouldn't they know how to
think
cook
they do.
food? The people who arrived on the planet.
No, I don't think they know how
cook
to
food.
make clothes.
They
I
do.
think
They mention that he mentions that they sit down and they're like sewing stuff together,
Thupa,
in little circles,
Thupa-
being idiots. That's all they do.
Yeah, and Thupa, these people have been exploded into fireballs several
Yeah, exactly.
hundred
That's how they get their
times.
clothes back.
That's fair.
Yeah, how do they get their clothes back?
I think it's basically this. I think the Bakura actually do retain a decent number of skills from when they were human. It's just, I think they just have like a preset list in their head. It's like, okay, we have exactly 13 huts. We have exactly 70 pieces of clothing. I have to eat 3 times a day. And there are just like very simple subroutines that go off where they have like a bare minimum that they do mechanically and everything else just decayed and disappeared.
That's fair.
Okay,
I think it's basically that.
I buy it.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about we better talk about Dure. He eventually has this zany scheme where he yells, "Yes, I will become of the cruciform like you," even though he doesn't understand what that means, and he probably shouldn't say it. Hyperion is not a world where you want to just roll the dice on a mystery. I'm just going to say that.
Exactly.
Like if you're in Hyperion and you see a button that says something will change, don't hit that fucking button.
Don't press it.
Run.
He should never have pledged his allegiance to the Monster Mash, basically.
Yeah, and worship at the Graveyard Smash. TPP.
And worship at the Graveyard Smash. Yeah.
But they tell him, okay, we'll take you to where we do the cruciform thing. And they go down the grotto, but in a different they go to a different place, right?
Yeah, like way far down.
He had noted when he went to the grotto that there was a stairway or something leading even down to like there's a river really down, like kilometers down.
Yeah, and Dure is not very physically fit, so him just getting down to the temple and back was really hard. And one thing about Hyperion's big mystery, the most mysterious thing in the whole universe that has been found is the time tombs, where within Hyperion, there are these deep catacombs where when you go in there, you can't really find much.
They're specifically labyrinths, yeah. It is a labyrinth planet.
One correction. The time tombs and the labyrinths are two different things.
Okay. I wasn't sure about that.
I think there is an entrance.
But they don't go. But you're wrong, Green. They don't go into the time tombs. They only go into the labyrinths.
Into the labyrinth, yeah.
Yeah, so fuck you.
Doesn't matter if you're. Doesn't matter if I'm wrong because you're wrong too. It's religion. That's
Father
how it
Dore.
works.
No, I thought by the way you were speaking that maybe the tombs were inside the labyrinth.
Well, I was confused, but the core concept of Hyperion is permeated by these inner structures where if you take scientific equipment in there, you notice that time just kind of stops working when you're in there. No one really knows what the fuck happens. There's also the labyrinths, which I guess are a different thing. I got mixed up. But when you go under the surface of Hyperion, weird shit starts happening. That's the core concept of what I'm saying right now. So Dore going down a staircase that's really deep is an indicator that things are about to get weird. But the Bakura take him down there.
Like they've warned before.
Yeah, but the Bakura take him down there, and it's such a long trek that just going downstairs, Dore looks behind him and just knows, there is no way I could ever get back up this again. It would take me weeks. Like, I'm going to die of dehydration if I try to climb that thing again, because there's just no fucking way. And the Bakura have to help him get to the bottom. But they eventually get down there, they take him into a room, and everyone kneels, and guess who shows up?
It's the barber.
It's the Ronald McDonald.
It's the
Edward Scissorhands himself.
Yep, the good old Shrike shows up.
Nobody said Shrike. You said Shrike.
Okay, the Shrike. Shrike shows up. He does his little shtick where he teleports.
Yeah.
Where when the Shrike moves,
instant transmissions. Yeah,
the Shrike doesn't really walk. I think he could, but it's like a Ganondorf in the old Zelda cartoon.
He does walk.
He just teleports around the world annoyingly when he feels like it. Okay, he does walk.
Sometimes he walks, sometimes he slows time for everyone else and just seems to teleport.
Forever.
Yeah, exactly. But
the Shrike goes up to Dore.
And sometimes he fucks a man.
And sometimes he fucks
Sometimes he gets fucked.
But then Dore is kneeling. The Shrike goes up to him. He takes his Shrike razor blade arms and he kind of cuddles Dore without actually stabbing him. Like he just kind of encompasses him in metal. Dore has a bizarrely sexual moment where he talks about quivering with the excitement of a young bride on the first night of the wedding.
Yes, he does. And he talks about the eroticism of seances.
Yeah, the first of many bizarrely sexual Shrike-related moments, which was not something I was expecting in this book.
Me neither.
Then Dore just kind of passes out. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. The Bakura use their squirrel powers to pull him up to the surface.
You're missing the main.
What I forget, Michi?
You're forgetting that after the Shrike disappears,
Okay.
The Alpha waddles up to him like a fucking brain-dead idiot that he is, sticks his arms out in a mockery of the Shrike, basically, in a pale imitation.
And nobody sees your Shrike.
And you forgot to mention that the most interesting thing about this cavern is that it's luminously pink because the walls are lined with different sized little cruciform, basically worms, from what I understand, lining the cavern walls. Yeah.
And they appear like a coral, but they
Coral,
are
that's right.
living beings.
Yeah, they
Oh, I did
shine with a
forget that.
faint pink glow. And Alpha plucks one off the wall, puts it on Dore's chest. Dore says, "Amen." And then all the little Bakura waddle out apathetically, and while he's waiting for, okay, I guess. And then he inspects it and walks out with them, and then he passes out, and then they carry him. Yeah. The main ritual. You forgot that part.
Yeah, I did.
To me, it always
He was just so focused on sex.
Okay.
It is actually unclear
Jaws?
whether
Yeah.
the Bakura are even aware of the Shrike, because they're all looking down as the Shrike passes like through them.
I think
So I hear
they
what
know.
Jaws
I
says.
think-
They probably know, but
Um,
they don't even mention it or even anything.
when-
They never named the Shrike.
Yeah. When they are going up the stairs again, and Dori is basically passing out. For me, it almost read as if he fell, and died.
Oh, that could totally be true.
And because he wakes up at the top again, and yeah, we will get to get to what that means if you die and you have the cruciform on you.
You die in real life.
Yeah, and then you come
Yep,
back
yep.
in real life.
Okay. Well, Jaws, do you want to introduce the concept of the cruciform parasite and its significance?
Actually, they call it a parasite, but isn't it more like a symbiont? Like it doesn't kill the host. Like
It's true. It seems to have the only negative side effect that it has is you can't leave.
Yeah, the pain that it gives you when you try to leave, and there was something else.
I think so
And
far.
you
I think
you
that was
slowly
it.
turn into a retarded, dickless
Well, that's
monster.
only if you keep
That
dying.
only happens if you die.
Yeah, exactly. That's just because it has imperfect rebirth powers.
Yeah. I wonder how he found out about. Not I wonder. I have forgotten how he found out about the resurrection thing. Like the first.
Another Bakura falls off a cliff and cracks like a melon on the fucking floor, and then they take his body. He's gonna bury him, but they're like, "What the fuck are you doing, bro?" And they
Here's
pick
the
up
thing.
the corpse and take it to the altar, and then he watches as
Right,
in like
yeah.
in the process of 3 days, ha ha ha. It resurrects and like they have like kind of auto homing where when they resurrect, they're like they don't even talk and they just like kind of sense where their home is and they kind of make their way back on their own. Very impressive.
Well, that's because of the cruciform, the parasite.
Yeah.
And the reason it is a parasite and not a symbiote is because a symbiotic relationship means that both parties participate to enhance each other, right? And this is a parasite because it acts in its own best interest without regard for its host's best interest.
Yeah, but the host also kind of.
Yeah, the
benefits
host is
with
getting
the-
a benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The host is getting a really good benefit if they know how to
it's
use
not,
it wisely.
It's you cannot opt out of it of the relationship because
You can't.
out of a symbiotic relationship.
But he did opt into it.
You not exactly, but I suppose
Well,
you can.
I didn't see him say, "Don't put that cruciform on me." He just accepted that little worm right on him.
Yeah,
Please
because he
don't
didn't
kill
know
me.
what it
Was
was.
more the more the sentiment.
Sure, but who decided to make their way into the Bakura village anyway? This is all on him. He could have just stayed at home.
Like he
Goddamn
scans.
missionaries.
Like,
exactly.
he
Let's just blame
realizes
the Swedish.
after the first day, after he wakes up, to realizes that this thing has fully merged with his body, and he scans himself like with his medical equipment, and he has realized that this has like sent tendrils all through his body up into his brain, and he's absolutely horrified. And he tries to remove it, but every time he tries this thing, which sits like has access to his like pain center in his brain, causes him so much pain that he passes out and he cannot remove it. And yeah, then he finds out about the resurrection powers, I think.
And really creepily, the med scanner has issues because the cruciform is made of his DNA. It has
Right,
exactly
yeah.
his DNA. It's
Right,
not
yeah.
like it's not even. It doesn't even seem like it's invasive. It's just
not an
part of
external
him.
body. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're the same organism at this point, 100%.
Yeah.
Crazy shit.
To pull back just a little bit, this there's really not much to say about Dure other than how it ends, I guess. Just talking about Dure's crisis of faith a little bit, because when Dure goes down into the temple, he thinks he's going to revive Catholicism. He thinks, oh, this is Christianity coming back. And one thing about this universe, weirdo religions are kind of taking off, but traditional religions are not doing very good. Kind of, I think I hear Michi laughing in the background.
I just like that. Yeah, you're totally right.
Okay.
I bet in this world, Jedi is like a legit religion, way bigger than way bigger than Catholicism.
It actually almost literally is.
You mean like it is in real life?
Kind of, but
they're just more memorable. The meme religions about the fucking big metal blender guy is just gonna stick in people's head more than about the fucking guy who died a long time ago on a cross. Boo-hoo for what?
Yeah, and
one of them demands sacrifices right now.
Well, traditional religion has not been doing well, and part of the implication with that is old Earth is gone. Earth was destroyed many hundreds of years ago, and a lot of these religions, they just don't feel like they have power when they're removed from the context of Earth. Jews are around, and that comes up with Saul because his Jewishness is a big part of what happened, and it's explicitly said,
Muslims
and it's explicitly
too. Yeah.
Cool, and Muslims too. And it's explicitly said, Judaism, part of why it has crashed and burned, and this would go to the other Abrahamics as well, is God promised he would not destroy the earth a second time. And the earth is fucking destroyed. They find a clever way to twist that a bit later on, but we will learn at the end of the book. But God betrayed us. Like the old religions, they were explicitly tied to earth, and Earth is just over now, so it's hard to care. It's hard to care about a god who would not protect the Earth that he supposedly created for us. The weirdo religions are doing well. The Shrike cult, I don't really know what the goal is there, but it's doing well. And they don't get into it much, but they talk about Zen Gnosticism.
Yeah.
Which if you want to create just a nonsense idea of a religion, it's like Zen Gnosticism, where I assume this is an abstract Gnosticism where it's you wake up to the enchanted nature of reality and attain hidden knowledge. Then it's Zen, where like the absurdity of belief and like how your mind creates like reality and contradiction and everything's a joke. Like it's a meme religion if there ever was one, and apparently it's like the dominant faith of the world, other than maybe the Shrike cult.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught that. That Martin Silenus was one of the people who founded this whole thing.
That's right.
Of course,
and now he calls himself a pagan, though. He got tired of it, and he's
The
gone back to
man
plain
was
simple
of
paganism.
every religion.
Yeah, that's true. He was
He turned himself into a sage, so he's done all kinds of shit.
What the fuck?
Martin is the biggest fucking. We'll get into him in a fucking moment, but
Martin is special. We love him.
But the religion aspect is interesting, and I think the priest tale coming first happened for a reason, because this crisis of faith thing, it permeates Hyperion in general, and it ties into the Shrike in a really interesting way. And Paul's crisis of faith is he is losing his faith. His religion is dying. He basically tells Hoyt, the person actually reading his tale, I expect you to be the last generation of Catholic priests, because there's just going to be no one to even go to your services before too long. Like, we're really on our last legs here. Then he sees the temple, and I swear, when I read it, my impression of this was that when he was in there, he saw something, not just the literal temple. I kind of believe that he saw some time anomaly that made him think he was communicating with Jesus or something, or he could objectively prove that Jesus was real based on the powers that he could invoke from there. Like maybe it's a window into time and space. I don't know. I thought something was going on. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe that's me being weird.
I didn't get any of that.
Well,
No.
I don't think I got that, but I can see how that could literally be the case, because we have in real life already the ideas of people having these profound religious experiences just based on the fact that they were in the right place, in the right time, at the right mindset, right?
Yeah, I think that's
really
what
do,
happened
don't
to
we?
him. So
Just thought that the presence and majesty of the place was enough to give a second wind to his religious inclinations.
I guess that in my case, just his enthusiasm kind of shocked me, where he was going out of there like, fuck, I got it. Like, he's like, I found the mathematical proof that will save our religion. I don't feel like just the existence of the temple would be enough for that. I felt like he got direct, like, presence of the divine or something. No, like, I really felt like something was going on, but maybe not.
I think the basilica, as he calls it, would be more than enough proof, because you couldn't... What are you going to say? That, like, erosion spontaneously created this perfect cathedral with... It even has, like,
stained glass.
Yeah, it has stained glass, natural stained glass windows and a fucking big cross right in the middle of it.
We don't need to get into this. Also, tiny chance that the Bikora made that in the first several hundred years where they weren't retarded and then just forgot that they did it. I don't think... I'm not saying they did, but maybe.
With the tools that they had available,
they had nothing but time. Maybe the cruciform makes you really good at architecture for a while before you develop Mongoloidism.
Why would the Okay, maybe getting into like some stuff about the cruciform and more about the book. Why do the cruciform want to be worshipped, or is this just a weird coincidence
I don't know.
where some long time ago people started worshipping it because they got infected by worms who live in labyrinths?
Cruciform isn't... I don't even assume it's necessarily a parasite. I assume it is a part of a bigger thing that the entirety of Hyperion is. I don't think Hyperion is a natural world in and of itself, if we're honest.
I don't think... I didn't even get the idea that the cruciform were naturally from Hyperion. They just seemed like they just crash landed on there and infected the labyrinths that have been there for 750,000 years.
Here's my idea, right? There are these labyrinths under the surface of Hyperion that exist there. And within those labyrinths, you can find things that persist on the walls like coral, that have a purpose of perpetuating themselves and the things they are attached to. So wouldn't it make sense if Hyperion under its surface was an artificial world that has all of these mechanisms that prevent it from aging?
That is actually brilliant. And Thupa, when you think about it, because Hyperion is permeated with the time tombs and the labyrinths, you can almost think of Hyperion as just a ball that was constructed by intelligent forces made of, minerals and time magic. And the life on the surface, it's like moss growing on a bowling ball. Like, it almost has nothing to do with the actual planet itself, which is a constructed entity. That's great. Jaws, you've been quiet for a while. How are you doing?
No, I'm following along. There is a reason for like the whole crucifix thing. I think it's not that well set up in the second book, or maybe I read a little bit about it on the wiki, so I'm not sure if it.
Please tell me. I'm very curious.
No. I'm not going to.
Don't tell me. I haven't read the second book yet.
I'm going not into it.
Damn.
But there's a reason how this factors into the whole thing.
I think Michi just wants Green to be spoiled.
kind of.
Okay,
Yeah.
can I just talk about the big elephant in the room, which is like, okay.
Are you calling me fat?
No. Not yet. But is this implying that Jesus was infected with a cruciform parasite, and that's why he revived after 3 days? And also the whole cross thing.
I never thought of that.
But how did you not think of that? It's the most obvious thing. It's like,
that's such a weird idea.
They're saying that the cruciform and the cross and venerating the cross is much older than Christ.
Does that mean on
Christ was probably an alien?
There was some retarded guy who was Jesus?
Well, no, because that was Jesus' first life. He hadn't died yet. But yeah, when he came back from the tomb, he was a little stupider. He came out and he was a bit dumber.
Does that imply that there is a retarded guy on this earth that is Jesus?
Well,
it would.
But the whole point of
unless Jesus died in the nuking of Hiroshima, he would definitely be alive.
I'm just saying. Aside from the fact that it takes conspicuously.
Somewhere under the surface, in the area 42, there is a literal Jesus.
Aside from the fact that coincidentally it takes 3 days for them to revive, which is 3 days for Christ to revive. Finding the church, what the major implications of it are that the crucifix is not either that it's a huge coincidence that these cross-shaped parasites are worshipped in exactly the same way as a guy who is nailed to a cross, or that the entire idea of crucifixes and that form was put into humanity's mind by a much older cult that already worshipped the shape because of the bugs, not because of Christ being nailed to one. And Jesus was of the cruciform. He had a parasite on his chest, and he kind of came to earth to kind of perpetuate the worship. Because if you think about it, Christians are all worshiping these worms accidentally. They are. They're incidentally worshiping, and also it's a weird reviving mechanic that they both have. The worm essentially makes you a Jesus. It makes you rise after 3 days. Isn't that a good way to spread the word? Except, they can't leave Hyperion though.
I think there's a religious symbolism there, but one, yes, they can't leave the Hyperion, and two, Jesus happened on Earth.
Well,
And
time travel.
Earth was not exploded 2,800 years ago. Yeah, and time travel. Also that.
You know what? Maybe Jesus's wise sayings, maybe the Bikora retardation was starting to set in, and it was all just a misunderstanding. Like when Jesus was like, "Who was that person's neighbor?" Like that was a real question.
Hang on, I just disproved your fucking thing about them maybe having built the temple, because it says that the fucking cross is like, if it has rubies and emeralds. So what are you telling me, that these guys, like with their hands, they dug thousands of meters into the earth to get these rare minerals and shit?
Okay.
I want to propose
much
to you
older than the crash.
I want to propose to you, Michi, the reverse idea. What if Christianity was a thing, right? And the things, the parasites, the cruciforms, right? Not crucifixes.
Copied Christianity?
Were designed in the shape of the cross for that reason, and they were part of why Duray had this revelatory experience. Because we know that we pretty much know that this temple predates a lot of the things, but Christianity could not have been born on Hyperion, because no human life was on Hyperion before we left the Earth.
Okay, sure.
Maybe
the worms could have gone, but the worms, the cruciform worms, who were worshipped already by another life form hundreds of thousands of years ago, could have gone to Earth and infected people on Earth.
Oh, okay. There's no real way to resolve this except for maybe time travel. Maybe there's a stable time loop where
except reading the book series.
I just really felt like we were getting a lot of Jesus pointing to Jesus and be like, Jesus was an alien. Jesus was infected.
We're ending this tangent. Like that was great, but we're going to be here for hours if we keep on that.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good tangent. About the religious themes, though, Duray, he goes in there. He thinks he can prove it. But then he decides he made a mistake. A bit later in the recording, he says, faith is important. I was wrong to try to replace faith with direct proof and take that away from the people who might have believed. He has this scientific mind and desire to know, but in the end, he kind of decides, even if I could prove that Christianity was true, it would be wrong to do so, because there's something about belief itself that is just necessary in this insane, chaotic universe in which something like Hyperion can exist.
In addition,
I just want to stress how great this idea is. But Josh, let's go.
In addition to this, another reason why he comes to the conclusion that his decision was wrong is when he sees the resurrection power and experiences himself eventually, and then realizes that it degrades like your mind, your capacity like your intelligence.
And your body.
Yeah, like everything. And he, of course, realizes that the core thing about Christian religion, like the afterlife, heaven, that is unattainable when you can't die. Like it's a corrupted version, basically, of Christianity, and that's one of the major things why he believes that he made a massive mistake, because now he can't die. He can't go to heaven. When he can't go to heaven if you can't die.
Am I mistaken, or is true death not used in Buddhism to mean also the death that you die? That means you won't be reincarnated, and that's what achieving nirvana is.
I don't know if they use that term.
I think it's.
It's
I think
not
I've heard.
exactly
I think I've heard
like
true
that.
death explained as like. I want to
that's
leave the
kind of the
cycle
concept.
yeah.
It's not exactly like that, but you're.
I think I've heard it. Maybe I'm thinking of the manga Buddha by Osamu Tezuka.
I think you're thinking of Planescape Torment.
Could be, yeah. That guy
I'm not
also
sure.
denied the true death. It's true.
No, they actually say that in Planescape. I think.
They do.
But,
okay. Well, okay. Maybe it's.
But
it's all the same idea, basically, being in different texts.
Yeah, Nirvana and all that. But what do you guys think about Duray's conclusions here? Like in his decision, dying is important, having faith is important. Any thoughts on that? Because I get it, where on one hand, I definitely understand wanting to know, but knowing probably isn't much help if you're facing the horror that is this universe that Hyperion exists in.
I just love this little nugget that the author put here, because this is what really differentiates a good book from a great one, because you have this like just momentary reflection from a character that is an author's point of view summarized from years of experiences of life. And it's this idea that faith is about repeating things without having clear answers to them, these rituals. And almost mandatory system of beliefs that you reinforce through a lot of thought, through a lot of action, but you can never have the clear answers to. And it is for you to find solace and peace of mind with knowing these things and then accepting them. And you're just thrown out there like that.
Well put.
Not to cheapen Father Duray's like conclusions or anything, but also like the main thing seems to be that he thinks he's being punished specifically for trying to prove. He's basically trying to scientifically prove a religion, which is stupid. But he's doing it because of, like Thupa was talking about the influence of these new religions that have concrete gods and stuff. But I mean, he's literally like, being influenced by like the fucking, like the tribes of like Sodom and Gomorrah who have like actual physical deities they pray to, like, but also like he kind of has to reach this conclusion because there's nothing else he can do. Like, all his proof has been burnt by the Bakora. His only proof is himself, and he can't leave because when he gets 10 kilometers out of the village, he gets a heart attack, starts feeling immense pain, and then wakes up and he's already like auto walking back to the village. Yeah. So there's nothing else for him to do. Even if he had the conviction that no, this is really what will save the church and prove everything. Well, tough luck because he can't prove shit. Ever.
So the man decides to
he has to basically come to the conclusion that it was stupid to try and prove it anyway. It just built himself a little chapel.
The man decides to fucking atone for her sins.
The man decides to. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a metal album cover. He decides to turn himself into a piece of living metal art in the most badass show of conviction ever put to literary description.
So
He
Yeah.
fucking
What
crucifies
happens?
himself exactly like Jesus did on that Tesla tree.
That's literally what Jesus did. He crucified himself famously, and he was on an electric tree. He famously went, "Sorry, disciples, I've sharpened a stick. I decided to impale myself on here, and I'm going to continuously revive." He's doing
For 7 years.
He's actually doing the reverse. He's doing like a reverse Kirito, where Kirito knows that his regen is so strong that he goes in and walks into damage that he knows it'll regen so fast. He's counting on it not regenning fast enough.
I can't believe you referenced Sword Art Online at this moment.
That was to bring
of
it
all
down
things.
after the high theology we're talking about. Kirito
Well, what
is
he's
also a
really
Jesus
trying to
figure,
do,
okay?
Michi, is Madoka
Kirito-
Magica, because he's trying to break out of the time loop within
Trying to
which
break out of the
he's stuck
cycle. Yeah,
Okay,
and,
before
I'm
he becomes a black hair.
and
let's slow down.
Hoyt was his black-haired girl. I forgot her name. Yeah, it came to save him.
Homura. Well, let's slow
Homura,
down
thank
here.
you. Hoyt Homura.
Okay, really quick. Okay, Jaws, do you want to describe what happens to DeRay at the very end and how that leads into Hoyt's situation?
yes. So eventually, Dori comes to the conclusion that that he does not want to continue existing like this, because you cannot really call it living anymore when there's no death. So what he has left, I think he has like 4 of these lightning rods left, with which he used to get through the flame and Tesla forest thing. And despite of the pain that it causes him to walk away from the village, he goes until he finds the nearest Tesla tree, and those things attract lightning. And he impales himself, he crucifies himself on this Tesla tree with these lightning rods, and continuously for 7 years is electrocuted on this tree, regenerating and causing himself so much pain, because earlier he realized that the parasite, the cruciform, does not actually like pain. That's like the one thing it cannot stand, and usually it will just make the person black out and walk into the range of where it does not feel pain. But if he crucifies himself there, so he cannot leave, and he hopes that all the lightning and stuff will eventually drive out the cruciform from his body, and he is stuck up there in this tree, dying and regenerating for 7 years. I've forgotten how Lena Hoyt was enticed to go to Hyperion and to look for him. I forgot how that happened.
I don't remember exactly how. I thought it was just a bureaucratic, we have to send someone because we're responsible for this guy.
They wanted to check on Hoyt, I believe, or DeRay, I should say. And they sent an expedition they couldn't get for a while. Then he was presumed missing completely. And after some time, they send a skiff, find the Bakura, find the dude.
The Bakura have started referring to Father Dore as the son of fire, I believe. He's
Something.
Yeah, he's become like a secondary.
He's become a legend.
He's become a lesser, religious icon for them, and they also kind of pray to him a bit, keeping their distance, obviously, so they don't get fucking electrocuted.
But it's actually really clever. Do you remember earlier in the story when Dore looks at the sun and says, "If only I could be so grossly incandescent"?
And then he does those little, and he's kind of in the same pose when he stabs himself into the tree. He just wanted to praise the sun for all.
Yeah,
but instead he rode the lightning.
Yeah, he did praise the sun. Sun with an O. Fuck you. Fuck you. That was, God damn it.
Oh, I wanted to mention.
I'm sorry. I sometimes forget just how funny you are.
Another reason that he decided that crucifying himself and being electrically endlessly electrocuted was a good course of action was not only that thing that Jaws said about that they don't like pain, but also he on one incident saw a Bakura who had died, but had all its flesh eaten away by these fire ants. And it was just a skeleton with a cruciform. And he, like I was saying before, very scientifically minded. He thinks to himself, even though he's seen all this fucked up supernatural magic shit, he still thinks, well, there's no way the cruciform can break the law of the of the conservation of mass. Yeah, he's like, well, fuck that, right? So, and he's right, because the cruciform cannot do that. What they do instead is another Bakura takes the second cruciform onto them. And the father presumes that when this Bakura dies, it will be reborn as 2 complete Bakura, and they'll become 70.
Well, it does happen. I think it just does happen.
I think later it's kind of implied that they're still 70. So I think he also planned he thought maybe the lightning could destroy his body enough that the parasite couldn't regenerate him completely and would have to be going to someone else, which it does.
Because he's fine alive.
Yeah, because when he's found at the end, he's basically just a skeleton with milky eyeballs. So yeah, that was another reason why he fucking decided to become a human lightning rod.
And he
metal as fuck.
And he smiles. His gross burned corpse briefly smiles at Hoyt before both cruciforms fall down and latch on the Hoyt. Which
No.
Wait a second. No. It's not both. Only one falls from him. Hoyt presumably got the second one on his own.
Yeah, like he was given a own one from the Bikura, and then he was implanted with the one from the Re, so that's why he has 2.
these Catholic priests just do not learn lessons, do they?
And interestingly,
once again, very historically accurate.
2 things. So the normal one is like in on your
on the chest.
Yeah, what's it called? The sternum. Yeah, on your sternum bone, kind of. Yeah, exactly there. And the other one was like between his shoulder blades on his back, so like exactly behind it. And the guy who is it? The guy who coaxes the real story out of him. Which character is that? The consul. The consul.
Yeah.
He expects to find the second one on his back. So the consul presumably is familiar with, I guess maybe you guys probably know more about this than I do. But yeah, that immediately like puts the consul in kind of a weird, like, why would he expect the second one to be on his back?
Well,
like,
the consul was the consul of Hyperion. So it makes sense that he would know some of the secrets.
Cruciform worms. Okay.
Maybe.
Oh,
well,
I also have a little, I also have a little like slight distinction I would like to clear up. It's probably not important, but when he's walking away and he feels pain, is it because he's walking away from the Bakura village, because he's walking away from the temple, or because he's walking away from the rest of the glow worms that exist in the labyrinth?
I want to think. I don't know. It's not specified. Even in the second book, it's never mentioned there, as far as I've read. But I think it's a safe assumption that he's getting away from the source where all of those things reside.
Where the worms are.
I think also that's kind of what's implied, that you cannot go too far from that when you're implanted.
And also it makes sense, I guess he can't go away from the other Bakura because they're also a bunch of cruciforms.
And
that's probably why they move around as a group together, because they don't like being apart from each other much.
One thing we know is that another thing that it may be, right, is that within that place resides Shrike, at least to some extent. And what if you can't get away from that?
That can be as well, yeah.
That could be
I don't think that's probably true, because there are points where...
the Shrike is everywhere on the planet, like at multiple times. It's true.
I don't think it's true because of the end and what we'll learn in the console story, right?
Yeah, probably. And there are places in the story where it's implied Hoyt was much closer to the Shrike than he was at the beginning, and nothing happens. But that might be foreshadowing. Okay, well, wrapping up this story, I will say, Father Hoyt, it is clever. It is clever what they do. He's implied to be some kind of, pseudo morphine addict, and then at the end of his story, he scurries off to his room, and other characters run after him, strip him, and that's how they find the parasite, right?
Yeah, the consul does, not the others. Just only
the consul.
Just the console on his own.
Well, that's a very clever way of doing it, where they set him up as this shitty drug addict the whole time, and then at the end you go, oh, he has the cruciform parasite. Now it makes more sense. Okay.
And he has been going through different forms of painkillers, but this supermorph, like the extract of an extract of morphine, like the strongest shit you can get, is the only thing that can even temporarily help eliminate the pain he's feeling
Man.
all the time.
and even that is failing.
Hyperion predicted fentanyl. Can't believe
That's fucking metal. That's so metal.
There's so much pain in this story.
I can't wait to get to if Hoyt does encounter the Striker, or for some other reason, if he dies, where the fuck do they need to bring his body for him to revive? I guess to the same place? Or does he just revive wherever he is and they just happen to bring them to the temple because it's just what they do as a ritual?
Part of me did wonder, if they shoot Hoyt in the head, would Duray come back?
Yeah, exactly. Would he come back as 2? Oh, I guess they don't need to be at the shrine because Duray kept regenerating even though he was in the middle of the forest. I guess they just do that for funsies.
I don't see the cruciform parasite just deciding to commit suicide because you're not on Hyperion anymore, but okay.
I keep expecting I'm sure at some point it seems like, okay, the cruciform surely must reproduce, right? There's just not just a set number of them. So it would seem plausible that at some point when, I don't know, during the life of the host, they might expel a bunch of little tiny cruciforms back in the cave or something.
Well, I would say that they actually don't reproduce, and there is a limited amount of them, dating back to the theory I've mentioned before, where it's all a mechanism, right?
Okay, maybe. I think we're done with the cruciform. We've had enough cruciform fan theories. Anyone have any last thoughts about the priest? I kind of want to talk about the Shrike. Does anyone?
I think you look like a priest.
What? Do you think
Judas
Green
priest.
looks like a...
Okay. The
Electrical.
Okay. So talking about the Shrike. The Shrike is mysterious. The Shrike is threatening. He's this 10-foot-tall monstrosity of metal who is the master of time, the lord of pain. He can teleport through space and time. He can bend reality to his will. He's almost this omnipotent character within the context of Hyperion. At no point in the book does he leave Hyperion, but outside of that, he can basically do whatever he wants, to the point that it almost feels like anything that happens has to be within the Shrike's will to some extent.
Small correction on that. The Shrike at the beginning of the story and before does not have access to all of Hyperion. Like the area in which it can operate is slowly expanding, which is like I think it has something to do with time tombs.
Yeah, it must be that time field that the soldier mentioned. He felt like getting close to. He's trying to stay out of it so he wouldn't fucking, I don't know, age backwards or something.
Can we start talking Michi spoilers now? Because you can't discuss Shrike without now going a little into things Michi has not read.
Well, I think we can go. The earlier part, I'm trying to just avoid like major later spoilers. Talking about the Shrike killings is fine. When Hyperion starts, there is, as Jaws just said, yes, the Shrike is slowly expanding. I forgot that. When Hyperion starts, there's kind of civil unrest happening and general instability. The Shrike is not the primary cause of that, but he's definitely contributing because the Shrike is just causing problems. The Shrike just kind of randomly shows up and kills people for completely unclear reasons in a way that's very hard to predict. So the Shrike is almost like a terrorist in a way. One thing about the Shrike I want to get your guys' opinion on. To me, the Shrike is very threatening. He's very mysterious. He's very demonic, quasi-religious. He's very mystical. He's terrifying. I also find him really, really funny.
Why is that?
He is this kind of a slapstick figure.
That's certainly not the word I expected.
I think this thing is terrifying.
The thing that makes the Shrike funny is we're not 100% sure, but the Shrike seems to be one person or one entity. It's like there's a mass fucking disaster destroying the entire planet and just obliterating the social structure. It's one guy.
Yeah.
Is that not funny to you at all? Like, the Shrike is like a wacky neighbor in a sitcom. He's like Kramer.
I think he does come in. He does show up like Kramer. It's true. I think his ultimate goal is to just decorate his Christmas tree, and he'll use any means necessary.
It's just such a stupid problem to have.
It is, yeah.
It's-
I know.
it's-
I get what you're saying.
like,
Yeah, like
if the-
this is
if
like
the-
we're talking about wars and planetary scales and armies, and yet the biggest problem is this big metal idiot.
Because
You know what? The Shrike isn't the problem. It's the ecology around the Shrike. The Shrike is this mysterious, extremely powerful being. But the reason it becomes an issue is because a lot of different parties are simultaneously interested in interacting with it in different manners.
Yeah.
I want to say about the Shrike, what makes him so weird is he becomes normal. It's just one guy causing the entire fucking problem. Like, and people kind of know him. Like, a fuckload of people have seen the Shrike. If you're on a plane, you might just look out your window and see the Shrike just kind of strutting around being metal. It's like, oh, there's that fucking asshole again. And then later it's like, oh, he killed 15 people this week. Oh, I bet he did. And it's like, they can't fight the Shrike in any way. And the Shrike doesn't cause enough damage to disrupt the society permanently. So he's just this annoying neighbor that they have to fucking put up with.
And
I
they
find
can't
that
get rid
dynamic
of
really
him.
funny.
And they won't leave him alone either because their entire religious basis is around that fucking thing.
And the Shrike does it. The thing that makes him funny is he's just enough of a small problem that you can get used to him. Like, he's not worth completely remaking your way of life about. So on the Hyperion, in the capital city, like Keats, I think that's the capital city, or is it the City of Poets? One of those.
It's Keats.
But
Keats.
in Hyperion's capital, they know that people are being killed by the Shrike. It's just every day they open their paper, it's like, oh, one more person, their head was found in a dumpster. I guess the Shrike did it. And there's no urgency to the situation. It's just at barely the level where they just kind of go, okay, we just have to deal. Like, imagine the comedy of this situation. Like, you're just driving to work, you turn around the corner, you see a fucking 10-foot monstrosity with, like, metal fingers waving, like, 7 civilians around and just splattering blood everywhere, and you're just like, I guess I'm taking Broadway today, and you just drive around. It's like, fuck, whatever. It's like he's just a normal problem that they deal with every day.
What happens is you like see a child being decapitated by the Shrike, and you're like, "Oh, Shrike!" And then it looks at you and like, "Oops!"
What's interesting about
and then the theme plays. Da 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 da. Ba.
What's interesting about this is about this. Of course, they cannot do anything against the Shrike, but if I remember correctly, there is like a formation of militia on Hyperion because like
Self-defense force. I think.
yeah, like that recently formed. I think in part in response to the Shrike's territory expanding, but also because of the unrest that start happening, because we haven't mentioned this, but the ousters are heading for Hyperion.
Yeah, I think it's primarily ousters.
And in addition to this, people attack like the Shrike churches on Hyperion. I think when the pilgrims
They arrive.
then they find that the church that was supposed to help them on their pilgrimage has been destroyed. And I think that was the work of the militia. I don't remember exactly.
I mean, fair enough. Fuck them a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the militia, and not just that church. Like, even as they progress further, like any kind of monument or place
To the
that could
Shrike.
help with the pilgrimage, or to the Shrike, has all been burnt down. Like,
And that
The
is
fuck
in
with
part
them.
because Shrike's area of influence has extended and is now interfering with people more consistently.
Yeah.
makes sense.
One last thing of the Shrike is a brilliant comedy character. We don't have to say the context too much, but there's a point in the story where the pilgrims, Michi doesn't know this, there's a point in the story where the pilgrims are moving through all these old rooms and stuff, they're using this old infrastructure to get to the Shrike Temple. They open a door, they look in a room, and they see like 10 gallons of blood in the room with nothing else there. And there's a scene where they're going like, oh, well, I wonder what happened. It's like, and one person's like, let's not jump to the conclusions. And Martin Silenus is like screaming like, this was obviously the fucking Shrike.
Oh, Martin.
And they have a whole Abbott and Costello routine where they're just like, maybe he committed suicide. And Martin is like, it was the fucking Shrike. You know it was the Shrike.
Shrike's on third.
We're wading in 6 inches of blood. Who the fuck else would do this?
I love Martin so much.
Yeah, he is the best character.
And to lead into, we'll get this. Michi doesn't know this. We don't have to say who, but one thing we learn about the Shrike is the Shrike is from the future, kind of. And the thing is, the Shrike was sent back. He's here on a mission.
Oh shit, he's a Terminator. I knew it.
And and you don't know what. Okay, but he's here on a mission. And the fact that the Shrike is here and he's a killing machine and he's causing all these problems, that is set in stone. The actual conflict in the universe is, depending on how things play out, they can change the reason that the Shrike was sent back in time. I'm right there, Jaws, right?
More or less, yeah. Like, that's the conceit. That they think that they can alter, basically, potentially even the allegiance of the Shrike. That's like a thought that some factions are having.
And to me, this is where the Shrike becomes brilliant. Because the effect of what the Shrike is doing is something that's already determined. But the cause of why the Shrike is doing it is something that can be changed.
The meaning itself, yeah.
And I see that as a fucking genius way of smuggling in religious thinking and traditional thinking in a format that, contemporary modern people will be able to understand.
Like, one thing. The purpose of the Shrike does get explained in the second book.
Okay.
Cool.
Does anyone...
Is it in the latter part or in the...
I think it's in the latter part.
Does anyone like...
I think I'm not there yet. Okay. But I have good guesses as to why.
But does anyone like my idea there that I just had? Does anyone want to bite on that? Where, to me, that's like the religious mindset. I'm kind of stealing from Evola right now. Don't look him up. But
I know who he is, but...
you probably would.
Why would I know him? No, I don't know
idea.
Much. But in Revolt Against the Modern World, which I'm reading right now, Evola, his kind of core thesis is, in a traditional society, people look around and they see effects, but they don't think they see causes. Like, modern people think, we have a cause we create and then effects happen, where pre-modern people, they see a bunch of effects, but they believe the cause is external. Like, they believe there's a higher realm or an outside power that is the source of all the causes, and they just see effects play out. And I see the Shrike as you can take time travel, which is time is associated with God pretty heavily. You can take time travel and you can smuggle religious thinking into a format that makes it much easier for modern people to digest.
I want to comment on things, but I spoilers.
Yeah. The thing is, we can't say.
I guess I can just leave the call and you guys can have spoiler time. It's fine.
The second book explains a lot more of what's going on, and but we cannot talk about this.
Am I safe in assuming that he'll show up in everyone's tale, at least tangentially?
Shrike
I think
appears in everybody's tale, more or less.
Makes sense.
I think it has the least influence or the least appearance in the priest story. It's the least connected.
Really?
Right.
Wouldn't be.
That's the one where he fucking showed up right in front of the guys.
Braun Labia would have.
I don't think Braun or the Consul ever meet the Shrike. I think they just know about them.
They are connected to it, but I don't think they meet either.
Braun deals a lot with the Shrike Church.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm thinking in context of both books, so I'm not sure.
Probably.
From what I can tell, from I've parsed so far, there's a sea of grass. So the Shrike was sent back in time to mow the lawn before it becomes a real problem in the future.
Well, it does have a body that would really help.
Exactly. He's going to spin around in the sea of grass and
he can just kind of walk, and every part of it is a blade.
Internal lawnmower.
Yeah, maybe he sees us as maybe he sees humans as gophers.
Yeah, exactly. We're just intruding
all these
upon
vermin.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
just
right.
moles digging up the lawn.
Can I just say this is a problem endemic to fucking sci-fi and fantasy, which is like the cover is really not doing justice to stuff. Like I'm just thinking that, like, and I think these covers are like pretty good, like considering.
Awesome. I
like
don't
them.
have the copy. I don't have the copy with that cover, but I would like to have.
No, they're cool. If I got them, I would get them with these ones. But the problem is, like, even then, the version of the Shrike that is shown on these covers, while he is kind of cool, doesn't really do justice to like some kind of shifting metallic million-eyed monstrosity. Instead, it kind of looks just like a Star Wars droid with a bunch of shit on him.
It looks like IG-88.
Exactly, it looks exactly. That's what I'm thinking of. It looks like IG-88 fell in a scrapyard and magnetized a bunch of like sharp metallic pieces to it, which is like it's cool. But I think like I can imagine the Shrike I imagine is way cooler than what these guys got in the 80s.
I don't think the Shrike itself is very menacing in the picture, but I think the overall composition of both old first and the second books that I've read so far that I have in front of me.
That's why I collect old time books.
It's very good. I think it's very well put through and very, very thought through.
The cover for the second book is a spoiler, but it's an awesome cover.
I've seen it.
I've seen the one with the baby.
It seemed like something that was obviously going to happen.
It's implied that it was going to happen.
Very much so. Okay, does anyone have any general thoughts? We can talk about. I feel like the soldier is going to go really quick. Like I can do it in one sentence, probably.
I really don't have a lot to say about the soldier. I'll be honest.
The soldier is like the least. The story with the least stuff in it, I think, the least substantial stuff in it.
All you really need to know...
We kind of get through that story just oversight on how the world functions.
Yeah, and like the development of the military and their philosophy, which plays a role.
Yeah, because a large part of the grand narrative, as far as I've read, is embedded in the military. It kind of just gives you oversight on and context on what is to happen further down the line. But
it also introduces us to Monita, who is also an important character. So it does that as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought, okay. From your tone, I guess she is different from the Shrike. I thought she just was. I mean, certain characters, they say that. I think Selena's asked, like, was she the Shrike? Was she part of it or whatever?
That one fucking scene, that kind of, like literally the fucking scene.
It's such a mind fuck.
It doesn't really make sense. Like, because it is implied that she like morphs into the Shrike or something like this.
Yeah, she wanted to
fucking morbs out.
She wanted to bite his penis off with her metal razor sharp vagina, and he pulled out just in time.
The thing is, the Shrike is never again, at least in the two books I read, implied to have such weird morphing powers or something like this. So I don't know what the fuck happened in this
Might have been
scene.
something that Dan Simmons just dropped, and kind of forgot about conveniently.
Well, and the Shrike is so abstract that him doing a one-off goofy thing, it's not that weird.
That's true. He does.
He does some goofy shit.
It does seem to change even from
Kramer.
even in the admittedly minuscule portion of Hyperion that I've sampled. Even then, he does change between appearances, whereas the priest describes him as having just tiny things, like described him as having like 2 red eyes, but then in the soldier's tale, he had like a myriad of like hundreds of red eyes. So I was like, I guess he slightly morphs around, because he's like kind of like Quicksilver, I guess.
I don't remember that with the eyes. Like
maybe it was artistic license or something, but I do specifically remember like him just having like 2 glowing red eyes that were piercing the priest's
Could be
face.
Unreliable narrator.
It always mentions the red eyes. I don't know if
I don't know how many there are.
Changes.
It could be Unreliable narrator, of course.
It could even be the Shrike if he's like traveling through time. Maybe he's like changing forms, kind of. Like this is what he looks like before and after a certain modification.
Or bringing it back to your idea, Green, is that people that are interacting with the Shrike are changing its purpose as to be why it is there, and in doing so, changing its form.
Yeah.
I kind of view Hyperion almost like I viewed the Abyss and Made in Abyss. It's a weird reality bending realm where sometimes stuff just happens and you never get an explanation of why it makes sense. Like I do not believe at all. Oh, the Shrike, he just can bend time and stab people. That's all he can do. It's like I don't believe that for a fucking second. Like the Shrike is a manifestation of a much more complicated thing.
He fucks like a beast.
I'm just gonna ship my way past the fucking Soldier's Tale real quick by just saying Soldier's Tale is it's just the head of the military who put down the recent rebellion on Hyperion and reestablished order. It's just a bunch of flashbacks of his training in the Star Trek, chambers where they do the simulations, where it starts where he's like in the English Civil War or some shit.
No, it's the war against the 100-year war against France.
Okay, fine. I knew Michi was gonna fucking whatever. But
it's
anyways,
400 years off.
The Shrike is the Lord of Time. Doesn't fucking matter, does it, Michi?
Sorry, it was the American Civil War, actually.
Yeah, it should have been.
With swords.
Anyways,
and
the
then
soldier's
Stalin counterattacks.
Anyways, the soldier is fucking holding a musket in the American Civil War, and this fucking slave girl wearing rags just like walks up to him and starts having sex with him in the simulation. And it's the weirdest fucking thing where he's in a military simulation. There should be no sexy women to have sex with. And he looked it up afterwards, and she's not in the roster of the trained soldiers, and she doesn't look like she'd be there anyway. And this shit happens over and over and over again. Then he becomes the head of security on Hyperion. He's responsible for putting down shit. He engages in a really brutal war, which is unusual, where it's in a time of limited warfare, where total war is seen as, something that happened back on old Earth. We're back to medieval concepts of limited warfare where the elites just fight each other.
Yeah, Bushido.
Bushido. Yeah.
There's the new Bushido, which is a philosophy of, limited warfare and all that. But Hyperion's situation gets so out of control, he has to kind of go dark and, get a little old-fashioned in his methods.
But that does not happen on Hyperion.
God damn it. Fuck, I hate this book.
I forgot the name of the planet.
It starts with a B. Yeah, it's
Bravadia.
Brescia comes later. They're like two things. Like the first one where he gets basically noticed for his accomplishment is his put down of the Muslim rebellion, basically, where he blows the heads off with the satellites.
Yeah, he explodes everyone's brains like cool. Brain scanners. Yeah.
And the second one is the war on Brescia, which is I think it's the first and only real conflict that the hegemony of man has
with the ousters. Yeah.
And they see how fucking stupid it can be to have limited warfare ideas with an enemy who does not adhere to them at all.
Exactly.
And it's a horrible fucking slaughter. And after, I think I'm not sure if he got wounded there, but he's on a ship that then gets attacked, and then he crash lands on Hyperion, and that's right. How he ends up there.
The way he got to that ship is he got wounded, and they decided to extricate him because his methods were controversial within popularity. So they decided to basically whitewash his reputation by extracting him for a few years. Yeah. Kind of letting the heat die down and then putting him back in where he does good job.
That's right. And they specifically contrast the 100 Years' War, the battle, specifically the Battle of Agincourt, is seen in real life as like the end of chivalry because the English used longbows and decimated the French, who were mostly knights moving very slowly toward longbows. And they juxtapose this later with the... Oh, sorry.
Correction. The English used longbows before that. And I can't pronounce French words, but there's a famous battle where the English also used longbows against French cavalry and decimated.
Oh, I know that. It's the Battle of La Baguette.
Isn't that Agincourt? Or is
no? Agincourt was later. Agincourt. It's like Grécy or something like that. I can't pronounce the name.
Okay, but this one is seen as a big historical thing because the English won by such a landslide.
La Bibliothèque.
But yeah, this is juxtaposed with the battle on, I think it was Breccia, where the same thing happens, where he pines to himself that this was
Australian
the end.
for breakfast.
Shut up! This is the end of this is again once more the end. This is the end of new chivalry, the end of new Bushido. Once more, as he uses underhanded tactics and nuclear shit against these guys and fucking wrecks all their shit. And that's cool. I like that. I like reincorporation. And also to specify a little thing, you were saying, Green, that she was like kind of like a slave girl who just walks up to him and fucks him. It's even weirder than that, because specifically she helps him kill this man at arms.
She appears as a soldier every time, exactly. As a part of simulation.
Yeah, they both like normally kill enemies together, and then are both like lathered in blood and sweat as they fuck. Like that's what's implied to get at least him like really horny, is when he's like in bloodlust, then he fucking drops the blood and he's just in full lust. It's like, fuck, I really wish I could fuck something in the middle of killing, like after I just stabbed this guy's crotch. I really want to fuck someone on top of his corpse, basically.
I was trying to blow past this because like no one likes this part, and then it's like, no, we need to argue for 20 minutes.
Well, that's what most of the chapter is him describing how much he's coming because he killed people.
Yeah, I will say...
You've invited 3 nerds to this podcast. You didn't expect us to fight over specifics of a French battle in history?
I love how I'm the one with the history degree, but I know the least about history, like, most of the time it comes up.
La baguette.
It's okay, it's just because you're American.
You're not wrong. I will say, the only interesting thing about this part to me is the context of me watching it, because I was not expecting the second chapter in this legendary, high-minded, religious, mystical entity fucking a soldier in blood.
Exactly.
And... Yggdrasil. But
no, I was just like, I wonder why this book isn't more well known. Oh, that's not more widely popular. I just recommended it to my dad yesterday after reading The Priest's Tale, and then I was listening to it today, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have recommended that.
I was listening to this as I was doing chores around my apartment. I think I was actually working on my greenhouse. So I had this in my living room on a little, mini. I know. I used to work in a prison too. Green Mile jokes have been made. I had my little
pair of Bluetooth headphones.
What do you think? Thupa, I can't.
I thought the cord was lost in your beard.
I can't do this right now. Okay. But I had a speaker up on the top of a cabinet or something, and I was, had my drill out. I was working on stuff. I was playing this pretty loud. And as I'm, underneath like a giant metal rack that I'm moving and shit, I just suddenly hear like, and then I took my penis and I put it into her moist mound and I felt it move around it. And then
as
like
their nipples.
Yeah. The best is when he pulls out, he comes all over himself.
Oh.
That was really funny. Yeah. Just the visual.
I was specifically thinking of the part where he's like, and then razor blades started coming out of her pubis, and I pulled out, and they nicked the tip of my glands as it dripped nasty fucking pre-cum and blood all over and I realized like it's hot, so that my front door is open. So like I have a bunch of kids in my neighborhood that are playing in the street pretty often. And I suddenly realized, I live in this like really nice middle-class neighborhood. I'm playing like this disgusting sex scene really loud and my door's open. And I just like
this is why we don't have a live action adaptation of Hyperion.
We're guessing one actually.
Yeah. I had to just like get out from under this like 300-pound thing I was making, like scramble for my fucking the button on the boombox thing, just being like, I pray to fucking God no one heard that. Like, what am I supposed to shout?
Alexa, pause the porn.
I should have. Yeah, so that's
call the strike.
Mineta is shown to be something with the strike, and then they show up and they let him borrow time travel powers to win a battle. And then he was all traumatized after, and he got all religious, and he got obsessed with refining the tenets of New Bushido, where everyone's trying to hold him up as a legendary warlord action hero who saved civilization, and he's just like crying. Yeah, he's just crying in a corner, being like, the Shrike helped me once. I fucked him. Boo-hoo. Okay.
If somebody wonders why
cut off, and then I came all over myself.
If somebody wonders why Grit invites me to this podcast, it is if I was put in the same situation where he was. I would look outside, see children, and say, Alexa, louder.
Alexa, play cumsound.wave.
Okay, I'm glad we got that one out of the way. The only thing interesting to say about Kassad is he's kind of a hothead in the story. And when they go towards the Shrike, he brings armor and a gun. And that was just adorable to me. It's like
he brings so much fucking ammunition and shit.
I think
that
Kassad
is funny. I was
even,
when he said he wanted to kill it, I was like, how?
I think on some level, Kassad doesn't even believe that he is going to be able to shoot the Shrike in any meaningful fashion. I think it's more he just.
I think he just wants to have sex again, and he's hoping it'll turn around for him.
Yeah, he has a little suitcase that he has next to his gun, and they're like, "Oh, what's in that?" It's like, "Oh, that's grenades and stuff." It's actually lube.
He's got a little chainmail vest for his cock. This time,
I'm prepared.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say, does
different
anyone
sex toys it's gonna attach to its many protruded appendages?
Just to be clear, the next 4 tales are also about sex, right?
Oh yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, it's not wrong for you.
Most of them have sex in them in some degree.
Slightly.
The console's tale is actually
wonder
weirdly
why the
sexual
Jesuit
for the
priest one didn't have any
context.
sex in it. I guess it did with his little companion friend underneath the lightning storm. But
I mean, there's it would have been really weird if he walks into the village. It's like, oh my god, there's nothing in here but a bunch of retarded children. Fuck yeah.
Oh god. Oh, Jesus. That's more fucked up than what actually happened in the village somehow.
Yeah. Fuck.
And then they crucify him on a Tesla tree.
Yeah, they lied. They forged the journal. They just wanted him out of the fucking village. Yeah.
That's actually really
They
fun.
broke through autism to exile a pedophile.
And they pretended to be stupid in the journal so people wouldn't ask them any questions. Yeah.
It was all a cover up.
And then Catholic Church nuked them to cover up his tracks.
Yeah, we forgot that.
Yeah.
They nuked the retards.
They did nuke the retards.
They don't even send someone to go account for it. When Hoyt gets back, they just go, fuck it. We have enough fucking problems right now. Just nuke those fucking Mongoloids. We're not dealing with this.
And Hoyt laughs throughout this. He says he loves them all being set on fire and running around screaming.
So it's like, you follow the crucifix, we follow the mushroom cloud. Get fucked.
Yeah.
God damn it.
It's even more metal. God, that story's good.
Yeah.
They should have just nuked Duray as well.
I feel like Duray would have been sad that they nuked them, because by the end he's getting quite attached to these little idiots.
Okay, I'm willing to say that's Stockholm syndrome.
But he cries like when one of them dies. And there was only companions for a solid year and a half. Come on.
Since we're talking through the second story. We're second story, we're now on to the meme.
Okay.
The meme. The goddamn poo-poo.
Martin Silenus. Okay. You know, Michi.
This is where I dip out, I guess.
Well, I actually do have. I came up with a plan.
Version.
Well, I came up with a plan of how we can make this work.
You guys tell me the story.
I mean, we can do that.
And the plan has been put in motion.
Unceremoniously.
I just know that you were waiting for this moment for many podcasts. You've put this all in motion months ago just so you could kick Michi off the call. Finally, it all comes to the circle. This is the culmination. And what's the main part of the podcast? Now he kicks me and just finishes the call.
Oh fuck! I didn't even think about that. I should have. Are you guys okay with taking like a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. How is everyone?
Hey, Thupa was here a moment ago, just playing with his dog.
I just saw him scurry out of a screen.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Jaws? How are you holding up?
Fine so far. Yeah, pretty fine. And you?
Oh, okay, I'm fine. It's been a lot. It's been a lot.
Yeah.
But we're doing this.
Yeah, I have to continue the episode you released yesterday.
How you liking that?
It's funny. I mean, I mentioned the intro section already, which is like 50 minutes of jokes between Thupa and Michi.
Yeah. Jokes,
yes. Yeah.
Jokes.
I think it was funny, but it was a bit much.
That's my Shrike impression. Hey, Thupa, Jaws was just talking about you and Michi doing a bunch of jokes in the Green Knight beginning.
A joke. Wait, what jokes were we doing in the Green Knight beginning?
Just being a dick to me.
I don't think those are jokes. Those are truths. Hard-hitting truths.
All the gacha game references in context
I bet
of
Thupa
the
hasn't
Green
even listened to the final product yet.
I haven't finished it. I'm 2 hours and something in.
Holy shit, that was a long part. That's the longest Thane I've ever made.
Yeah.
I've definitely tried to sit down with it and like listen to it, but I haven't had the time yet.
I've only finished the first hour so far.
As the executive producer, I mean, if you want to jump in, with editing or make some cuts at some point, you can, just know that. Thupa's the Shrike, always making cuts. By the way, isn't it great that the Shrike went backwards in time, saw what Michi did to me during the GG podcast, and he showed up to take revenge on my behalf? That was so cool that he killed Michi like that.
Michi's fucking dead. You will never see him on this podcast ever again. In fact, his Twitter has been dead for years. It's traveling to us back through time.
Yeah. Ooh, cool. Like the Shrike.
Yeah.
Michi is the Shrike. The pen nib is the blade.
Michi is Martin Silenus.
Exactly. It ties
Michi, goddamn poo-poo. Michi is Martin Silenus. Okay, we're going to talk about Martin Silenus, and just to fucking frame him a bit, he is the poet. This is The Poet's Tale as part of the section. Where's my goddamn notes? Martin Silenus, he is built up the entire first half of the book. From the moment he shows up, he's the snarky character who has to call attention to himself, hints at having this great grand past that, we're just going to bask in the glow of his brilliance. They build him up so fucking much that
and then he calls everybody an asshole and drinks.
They build, and he's a drunk. He's just a snarky, he's that character. But they build him up so much, and he's such a fucking dick, that unless he is the greatest character of all time, we are going to be horrendously disappointed, and he is the greatest character of all time.
Yeah, he's definitely best character in the book.
The way he tells his story is just...
And I wrote this down. First line ever. His first line in the story is when someone comments about, I think it's the AIs not understanding human logic. And he cuts in by saying, as if we fucking humans were ever motivated by human logic. just right off the bat, that's who his character is. He's a fucking asshole piece of shit, but it's a delivery for divine truth. And he knows that, so he kind of gets away with it. Just to frame Silenus a bit, I see Silenus he is a creator's pet, but in a really good way. He is he is a monument to what the author loves. He is the mouthpiece for a lot of the author's passions. And there's this meta aspect where he's this great challenge, where he builds a character who, if he is not pitch perfect, he's going to be an annoying piece of shit. And like, he creates a situation. Am I the best author in the world? Do I have the skills it takes to deliver on the incredible promises I have made by establishing this character? And then he just fucking slam dunk. He does it. Simmons is the greatest author in the world. He wins.
A question I want to ask you later about Martin Silenus. Is he a way for author to vent about the way the modern sci-fi media is going?
How
That is
publishing
not a fair
works.
question. Of course he is. How could he not?
Yeah, and this scene is so great with like all the meetings with his publisher. Well, technically his second series, his second book, not the one that got so hyper popular, but the one he actually worked on. Yeah, the one he actually worked on and put all his passions in. And she says it's brilliant. Nobody will ever read it. And then what about the AI? And then did not even the AI like it?
It is the best shit I've ever rated. Will it sell? No
chance in hell. And when the AI likes it, why don't we sell it to the Technocore? Oh, we did. We sold one copy. They don't care about copyright. They just share it among themselves. It's so great.
Publish the PDF to each other.
Yeah, the fucking the Martin Silenus is a poet. It is the poet's tale. It's a writer. And the author's love for writing and the struggles of being a writer and some of the ego traps that go with it, I think, are all in this character. And that was the funniest thing, where when Silenus finally has his mega hit, like the Technocore, like robots, things that shouldn't even understand art, this beyond human, colossally intelligent, godlike mind that can like simulate the past down to the level of like individual atoms. These fucking beings that are so beyond our ways, even they are in awe of the beauty and the majesty of Silenus's work. But yeah, they just buy one copy.
Buy one copy and then just everybody gets the PDF. It's the fucking internet, dude.
And the other thing.
It's not even the internet. It's the fucking Discord server. It's one big Discord server. And somebody's like, I've read this thing, and then everybody downloads.
The other
Quick
thing
aside,
that's so
Braun was totally groomed. Just gonna say that. Jaws, go.
the other thing
was
that's brawn. He said. I'm not sure what you mean. Like in what way?
Discord, grooming, Braun is
Oh my
much younger,
God.
a lot younger than the other, whatever, I don't care. Jaws,
Yeah.
please go.
Okay.
You're
the
so
other
funny.
the other thing that was kind of heartbreaking actually, his first novel or his first series, which got so hyper popular, and then later on it was revealed that almost nobody read it, but tons of people just bought it, but nobody really read it. So it's like all his success basically came from, I forgot what his publisher called the phenomenon, and that basically nobody.
Pilgrim's
Progress
Journey.
effect. Pilgrim's Progress effect.
Yeah, right. That.
Where everyone in a society feels obliged to buy a copy of a book, but as she says, no one had to read the damn thing.
Right. It's
But let's
so
get there in
fucked up.
order, right? Well, let's start with the beginning, because the beginning is fabulous as well for this
Yeah.
train wreck of a person.
Born on old Earth.
Boy. And then he turns to Braun and says, and fuck you, Braun, if you don't believe me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great.
He's such an asshole. As Silenus goes along, Saul, like the saintly old Jewish man, he's like the only character who has not threatened to kill him at that point. The most patient man in the galaxy is the only one who has not like physically harmed Silenus for talking shit.
I think he gets mad at one point as well, but he
By
doesn't
the
do
end
anything.
of the book, he does. Nobody has not been mad with that man at least once.
Fuck. God, but even they love him. Like, this is the thing with Silenus. He understands what he is. Like, he's he's like the god of this universe almost, because like he can just mog on every other character. He's like, I'm the oldest character, and I was there at the thing that just happened on Hyperion, and I was the poorest, and I was the richest, and I'm the smartest man in the world, and I was retarded at one point, and I founded all the dominant religions, and I also did something with the Shrike. We'll get there later. Like,
Fuck, you're right.
Silenus, he knows he's the main character of this world, and he fucking bullies people with it, and it's fucking hilarious.
I completely missed, actually, that basically he is responsible for the whole Shrike thing as well. Like, that blew up.
That is Silenus, he has good reason to believe he at least started this episode, but the console looks at him like, what the fuck? No.
I don't think he did at all. I think he's more of a passenger along that train wreck than
No,
the
he didn't do it.
conductor.
He didn't do it actively, but like the whole thing with the City of Poets and
We'll
the
discuss
Shrike
it.
showing
We'll,
up.
we'll get to it. So
Yeah, Thupa, why don't you start us off with the basics of Silenus' early life?
the man gets born an aristocrat on old Earth when everything is fucking great. And
Not great.
nobody on old Earth as aristocrats gives a shit about anything. Oh, we shouldn't use that? Too bad, we have money. And so they teleport all over the fucking planet. He spends his time an idiot and a very pleasant man. He just hangs out with his friends, fucking shoots up wildlife that goes on another edge of the planet to see the sunrise, then goes back, and he has this mentor who just does not like or understand the technology, and he's like, you're just gonna memorize everything, because why do you need the smartphone thing when you could just learn the text?
Good old Balthazar, the whoremongering archaic monster who birthed Martin Silenus and unleashed this force upon the galaxy. I'll have more to say about him in a second.
I even forgot his name, like the name of the man.
How can you forget Balthazar? That's such
Because
a fucking name.
Silenus just eclipses him.
I mean, yeah, he is the fucking... He's the sun to the moon, or whatever, the other way around.
Yeah.
But goddamn. So Balthazar is quite the person himself, and Silenus takes after him in quite the large margin. But here they are, the teacher and the student. One teaches him about all of these poetic things, has no understanding of math or science, so doesn't even try, and Silenus just goes after him and learns everything by heart, and then the shit starts to hit the fan, because his family, apparently, well, all the money they spent, they didn't really have that.
Or at least not as much as they thought, that he thought they had. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all just borrowed money from a bank, and now that the Earth is dying, they're like, I guess it's time to collect.
Oh, fuck.
So, his mother, in the genius move that he has, that she has, the foresight and the great mind and intelligence of her time, sends Silenus, put some little money that they have in the bank under some percentage, and sends him in the fucking meat locker to the other end of the galaxy with all the time dead that can be made. So he arrives there fucking centuries later, and that little amount of money that they have can Futurama into Fry's fucking immense wealth. But the little problem that she has is that the bank knows that they have been deposited money in, and they just take that money.
Yeah, and of course the fucked up thing that happened that he had a stroke.
And also the thing that she has been, as Martin says in his wisdom and candor, was the only and the biggest miscalculation of her life.
Yeah, I think I fucking remember that line so much. She was just like, for the first time in our lives, Mother was wrong. Like a fucking hammer. Oh, and that's an aspect of Martin. He is so theatrical in the way he talks.
With everything.
Yeah.
He goes on weird tangents, goes in circles, but he's written so well that you tolerate bullshit from Martin that you would not tolerate in any other book.
Yeah.
Because every line he finishes with punchline.
He's so funny. He's so fucking funny. Like, he'll describe a very mundane aspect of his life like he's a character in an epic poem, which I guess he kind of is.
Yeah, he kind
And
of
then
is.
he just finishes it with, and then I shot myself.
Oh, fuck. Which, the interest scheme, it's like, I don't know what his mother was thinking. It's like, you think they're gonna just let you do that?
I thought she hoped. I think she thought that she hoped that the bank was just cease to exist in like the time frame, in the giant time frame that it takes for Sidenius to get there.
But then he just arrives there, and one of the things that she hasn't thought of is that, well, yes, people arrive there and they're safe and sound. It's just that they have usually problems when they are unfrozen after a travel like that.
Yeah.
And
The
Martin
fugue
has-
sickness.
And Martin has a fucking, what's it called? Not a
stroke.
heart attack, a stroke.
Stroke. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of the stroke, most of his higher brain function ceases. And I'd just like to read this passage.
Okay, please do, Thupa.
For the record, here's my entire vocabulary of manageable words. Fuck, shit, piss, cunt, goddamn motherfucker, asshole, pee-pee, and poo-poo. A quick analysis will show you some redundancy here. I had at my disposal 8 nouns, which stood for 6 things. 5 of the 8 nouns could double as verbs. I retained 1 indisputable noun and a single adjective which also could be used as a verb or expletive. My new language, universe, was comprised of 4 monosyllables, 3 compound words, and 2 baby talk repetitions. My arena for literal expression offered 4 avenues to the topic of the request for divine imprecation, 1 standard description of or request for coitus, and a coital variation which was no longer an option for me since my mother was deceased.
Like,
And then he finishes it with the punchline, because after that, the line just says, all in all, it was enough.
I want to. I'm going to get into Martin just a little bit here. That's a great thing about that passage is it shows off. He has words for describing words which most humans do not know or do not use commonly, where it shows both him and by extension the author that's always there has a general knowledge of linguistics, so he can, like, just the word expletive, like, unless you study language, you don't use that often. One thing I love about Martin, and this probably says a lot about the values of Simmons, Martin has a classical education, which was absurdly archaic in Simmons' day, which is basically our day. You hear people say this a lot, but thinkers in the 1800s, educated people in the 1800s, it was completely normal for them to know a huge amount of poetry. Memorizing poems was a standard part of education in the West for a very, very long time. I'm sure both of you know this. Where it's a type of education that we can't even really process anymore. Where they gave people a knowledge of literature and grammar and language, which was just colossal, where these people just don't exist anymore. If you find one, it's really rare. And somehow, in like the year 2300, Balthazar just happens to be like the last person like this. And they give Silenus this education, which is no sane person would do it. Like, no practical person would. But this insane aristocrat lady allows it to happen. And Martin is like a time capsule in a lot of ways. Where he was a time capsule when he was on old Earth of education from like 500 years before. And now he's in the new world where old Earth is gone. And it's like, he's like a god. He's a type of human who has not existed in forever.
He's
it's
a
like
character
if we're talking,
out of time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like we're talking. It's like an ancient Sumerian is one of the characters. Like, it's only slightly less weird than that.
The man
And
used
just
40 words to describe the word shit, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, and this is something about Sims that I find crazy. Where Hyperion, all the way throughout it, the author is really blatant about his love for poetry.
Yeah.
Like, is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Like,
Like
the naming of the book of the planet of Keats being the capital and all the
Keats is almost fetishized.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not even. Yeah. I love that Simmons manages to douse the book in a love for poetry without making it a book about poetry. At least not in any sense. Where it's
To a little
peppered with
degree, I think.
Yeah, it's peppered with references, maybe in like the associations that form in your head and it being a mythic religious book in a way. But it's there. And he has Martin Silenus, where Martin Silenus, it's like Simmons is mourning this poetic tradition that was very, very strong in the West for a very long time and then disappeared. And he creates this character. But to create that character, Simmons also has to kind of be one of those people.
Yeah.
Like Simmons himself, he could not write Martin if he was not an archaic lover of ancient literature that doesn't exist anymore in the same way Martin is. So it's almost like Simmons is living his bizarre, idiosyncratic life through the existence of Martin.
Oh my god, he was a 4chaner.
Sure.
The man posted a poll.
I mean, is that a fruitful thing I just said? Is there anything to say in response to that?
No, it makes absolute
Yes,
sense.
I just shitpost over it.
Okay, but that's fucking beautiful that Simmons, being one of the last humans with an extensive knowledge of poetry, makes this character who is that, but just to a hyper degree, where he's someone with basically a Victorian education in the future, just being weird.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. That probably has something to do with Simmons loving poetry, but that not being a big deal in science fiction in general, and he feels out of place and like he's bringing it into the world. But okay, whatever. Anyways, Martin says piss and cunt.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, goddamn poo-poo. Well, okay, we'll keep going with Martin. Maybe I'll delete that thing I just said. But
No.
Fuck piss, cunt.
and also
motherfucker.
a funny thing we forgot about Martin, he believes that machines are magic.
Shit, I forgot that you said that.
Until very far in his life, he thinks they're just benevolent aspects of the environment. Like trees produce fruit that you can eat.
I fucking
Like
forgot
there are boxes that make toast.
And
They
once
just
again,
exist.
back to Balthazar. The man had no concept or understanding of math.
Yeah.
So he was just taught that the machines just do the thing.
Yeah.
How magic.
And in his ignorance, he managed to create someone who doesn't understand much about reality, but understands language in a way that almost no humans have for a very long time. And, that's kind of cool.
And that human is left with a bunch of swear words on a
Yeah.
colony where he needs to dig fucking pits.
Yeah, so
Yeah, he
Mother's
ended
brilliant
like
plan.
on the worst planet to end up, basically, like the latest colony.
Yeah, he lands on a prison colony work camp where no one gives a shit. And he shows up there with no money and almost no ability to speak, so they just kind of give him a shovel and say, okay, get at it, I guess you do this now.
Like that, the interesting thing, because everyone else who would be put in this situation would, of course, think that they are absolutely fucked and that they have been dealt the worst hand in life that they can possibly get. But because of the stroke and because it nuked Martin's vocabulary, or at least his not his vocabulary in forms of thinking. I think he knows all the words, but he can't speak them. But because of this, because of his limitedness, because he is so limited now in his expression of words, it basically magnifies all his later writing accomplishments. Like I'm not sure how he describes this. Well, rather, I don't remember exactly how he describes this revitalization of his.
I don't think you're
of his
wrong,
spirit,
and I
basically.
get what you mean. But I think what was more formative for him here is that something he mentions is that he had no idea how physical labor would give him so much time to think.
Oh right, yeah, that as well. That he was like he had this dual life basically with working however many hours he had to work every day and simultaneously thinking. And when he was done, he was writing on his. Was it the Dying Earth thing?
Used like 8 words.
I wonder if maybe Simmons's life was like that at some point. Maybe he had a menial job, and in his head he was composing Hyperion.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, it wouldn't be very much out of character for a lot of people. I mean, it's kind of
King.
like a thing that a lot of writers did and still do. In fact, they get like this low effort maintenance job where they can think about other things on the side, and so they plan out their book and then they come home and write.
Yeah.
You're right, Thupa. I need to stop listening to stuff at work.
No.
Like your
Good point.
Like your fucking underlings.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. It is.
Your
it is
interns.
funny.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to Hyperion at work, and then I came here and talked about it. If I had not done that, maybe I could have written Hyperion.
Right.
Who knows?
No.
Right. Yeah, but no. Oh, right, it's already written. No, I meant the Keats poem, which was not finished.
Unfinished.
Martin's existence in the shit pile work camp is hilarious because he can't talk at the beginning, and so he just develops codes that people interact with him a lot kind of figure out, where like he goes up to the foreman, who's actually a pretty nice guy, I guess, and he says, I forget what it is. He's like, shit, goddamn, fuck, cunt, goddamn. And the foreman goes, oh, Martin, you're heading over to the company store to get some algae pads? Good on you. Here, go get me one, too. And Martin says, goddamn poo-poo, and just goes on his way. And that's the best way to say yes, and I will do that. I was just walking around my house just yelling goddamn poo-poo every time I did anything because it was so funny.
I can't say that I wasn't doing the same, literally. I would just go about my life, my daily life, and then sometimes somebody talks to me and I just have the urge to just say goddamn poo-poo. And it doesn't even make sense because they don't speak English.
That makes it better.
Right.
Yeah, and Martin's life is just that, occasionally seeing a prostitute that he has, I think, a weird attachment to, it's implied, just because she's one of the only people who is there, who doesn't beat him up and call him stupid, and he just tries to avoid bullies. And yeah, Martin eventually figures out that when he's writing poetry, if he finds, like, the perfect word, it somehow shunts the word through his brain and, like, puts it back into what he can say. And
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and he has a great quote by Twain, where Twain said, the right word versus the almost right word is the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. Where when Silenus has these little moments where he crafts a perfect piece of poetry, it just filters the words through his head. So over the course of years, he slowly learns to speak again by writing poetry and rebooting his language center that way, which is the greatest idea ever.
And then he gets
super
hit
popular.
on the head.
Yeah, like he
gets
gets
hit in
the
the
shit
head.
beat out of him at one point.
Yeah.
In the early part.
So
Yeah, there are bullies who bully him.
Martin
now, rich
has to
kid?
pay protection money to the bullies.
Yep.
But one day, he doesn't quite do it. He just kind of tries to fucking I wouldn't say vocalize with them, but like debate something with them, and they just hit him on the head. And it so happens that in that moment, a woman was passing over on a skip that was looking over this entire fucking hellscape wherein he resides as a menial, and she sees that, and she's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna be benevolent today. And she takes him up, they ready him in the fucking special hospital that is only for higher-ups or people of any meaning in that place. And while he's being treated for being hit on the head, she reads the shit he wrote, and she's like, that's fantastic. Oh, it just so happens I know a publisher.
Everyone's dream that the bully,
Right.
and specifically, he deals with the bully because he has his poem in his bag. And the bully says, show me what's in your bag.
Right, yeah.
And he said normally he would have just given this guy whatever he wants. And if he opened his bag, he'd probably just throw a few of the papers out and say, yo, get lost, fuckhead, and kick him in the ass. But it was like sacred to him. Like he emotionally couldn't let the bully look in the bag without fighting him for it. And that's why it turns into, the worst ass kicking he's got for a while. And yeah, rich socialite who, isn't she married to like the person who owns the place?
Yes. She's like one of these women that just marries everybody and after a few years divorces them. Or as Martin describes her.
Martin fucking used his powers of poetry to get in with the warden's wife, and she whisks him off away to a life of fame and fortune. And holy
And then
shit,
she
is it a lot
marries
of
him.
fame and fortune? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that part kind of sucks, but we need to get into Martin's fucking house.
Yeah. Where
The
every-
most obnoxious new money that, like, it's a monument to how fucking up his own ass Martin is.
yeah.
The man has a toilet that just exists
On an
on an
ocean
world. On a fucking shitter. And just to look out at infinitum.
Yeah.
Real quick, the basic infrastructure of this world is there's conventional, it's like Hawkins Drive.
Yeah.
There's faster than light travel, which causes, they call it time debt, where you get out of sync with time with people if you use it. Where it works, but if you use it too much, you kind of ruin your personal life because you're so much older than the people around you.
So
But
much younger.
That one.
The other-
But what they do is they send people out with Hawkins, and they use it for conventional shorter travel. And then they build Farcasters, which are wormholes where you can just walk through one and you find yourself on another planet somewhere in the galaxy where there's no time loss at all. It's instantaneous.
A little thing about Farcasters is it is such a high-tech technology that apparently they had to introduce the feeling of a little nausea and translocation, like a little disorientation to people when they travel through them. It wasn't inherently even there. It was just made so that people would be like, oh, I'm not suddenly in a new place when nothing fucking happened.
Good point. Like
don't
the
remember
bells
that.
and whistles on a train, I guess. Or with like natural gas, they put a little sulfur in there so if it leaks you can smell it. And when we get to the Consul's Tale, the whole crux of that is that setting up a Farcaster is a massive process where it takes fucking decades. It completely destroys the lives of the people who do it. You have to pay them a fuckload of money because otherwise they'll just say no. It's an insanely huge deal when a civilization gets a Farcaster. Like, there are whole planets that don't have a single Farcaster that have billions of people living on them. Martin has like 20 in his house.
Yeah.
His
Where
house,
every room in the house is on a
room
different
within
planet.
a different world.
It's so fucking stupid.
There's an ocean world that only exists for Martin to shit on.
Yeah.
That's it. He just has a portal and there's a little platform and he bends over and shits. Then he goes back to his home planet. Fuck. It's just a fucking Willy Wonka world. Like it's the dumbest way you could possibly spend your fucking money. It's hard to think of a worse way to spend your money. It's like, I want a portal in my bathroom to an ocean planet.
I want the door to my bathroom to be a portal to a different fucking dimension.
Like, the galaxy's population is so high that everyone bought his book, and it's like he has the GDP of like 5 star systems. And he blows through it so fast. He literally could have bought a planet.
He certainly could have.
Fuck. Asshole.
And so here we come to the new stage of Martin's life where he's famous, he's popular, he's well known, he's well liked within certain circles, and he comes to publisher and he says, all this time I've been up my asshole writing a new book for 20 years. And he gives it to her, the rough draft, and she's like, this was like, the way he says it is like, this was the one time she showed genuine emotion, that woman. And like, she has a tear and a breakdown a little, and he asks her, is it good? And she says, it's the best fucking thing I've ever read.
Yeah.
And then he asks her, will it sell?
No
And
chance.
she looks him in the eye and says, no fucking way.
It's so fucked up.
Just a little bit of context for that. Martin's poem was about old Earth. It was what he was writing in the prison colony place. He was writing on little scraps of paper a poem describing his mother, describing growing up on old Earth, describing the environment and the people there. And it sold because it was like Martin is this blessed artifact where he's the last human that ever actually knew old Earth and knew what it was like there.
Right.
And so it was, but when he went to publish it, they heavily edited it. They took out the sections about his mother. They took out the philosophy essays that he slipped in there where he gave his perspective on life. And they just left in the scenic descriptions of old Earth, which might have even been a better book, but it insulted Martin a little bit. Then they get to his perfect vision of what his book should be, and they just tell him no. Get fucked.
No, they don't even tell him no. Because she says specifically that they are in debt to him, and that if he wants to, they'll publish it. And they spend countless money on promotions and whatever. They print it, have it available across everywhere, and it sells like 20,000 copies.
Yeah.
Universe-wide.
There's like 20 quintillion humans or something. I don't.
And later we find out that 15,000 of those were sent to one place where he ends up, to the sad King Billy's castle.
Oh.
Like over half of the shit that has ever been sold was bought by one person.
Billy's the
It's so
champ.
sad.
Jaws,
Billy-
you have some stuff.
Billy's
Okay.
Billy's actually the the real champ. Again, the thing with the second book, the deal with his publisher was that if it doesn't sell, he has like to pay back like all the money they spent on marketing it. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and he wasn't aware of that. He wasn't even thinking about that. The man was so spoiled on money that he just didn't even fucking consider it.
Yeah, it was a massive fucking amount. I think he had to sell his house, right? To
Yes.
finance it.
Eventually, he does. It's the
comes-
classic rich person bad with money thing, where they're just slowly giving up pieces of their extravagant lifestyle until they're just left with nothing. And because he's in debt, he does end up broke before too long.
He comes back to her after his new book didn't sell anything, has been bombed by critics who say, I didn't even fucking read the thing.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
And just... and everybody called him up his asshole.
And he
Uppity
is. Like,
dickhead.
it was a pretentious work. It was a high-minded... He was trying to write the greatest poem of all time, and it was about him to a large degree. He is pretentious, but the book is actually good.
But this is where I think it really begins with authors self-insert almost
Yeah.
because we have like fairly good evidence from this like one woman who definitely reads a lot of quality shit to some extent that the work he made was great, even great, quote unquote, but nobody fucking otherwise, no critic read it, no audience liked it, nobody was appreciative of anything high-minded or philosophical or anything like that.
No one even bought it.
Nobody even considered buying it. Nobody fucking was interested in anything that had to do with it. And then he comes back and the author tells you, and his publisher tells you, good. Now, you can will everything that you have, and we're going to seize it, and you can just sit on your shitter in the middle of the ocean forever until you fucking starve. Or you're going to write what we tell you now.
Yes.
Yeah, like
And it goes
Earth
into
2.
his old Earth series.
and it goes into the arc of him writing utter garbage, and it's selling well
Yeah,
as he builds up audience, and he just completely desensitized to it.
Well, he
Until
becomes a
it-
mid-lister, too. Like, he's not a bestseller anymore. He just becomes, like, a pulp author. Like, he's like fucking H.P. Lovecraft now.
But it sells in the millions.
That's
yeah,
not
because
even
there's
that
so
good on
much,
Earth.
so much people. Yeah.
Yeah, but compared to his like masterwork, right? That sold like 23,000 or something. And this one sells in the millions, and he doesn't even have the audience yet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he sells millions, but he's in debt the GDP of like 10 trillion humans working for 5 years at this point, so it doesn't help. Fuck. I think that's also the part where that's where the Technocore bought one copy, where the robots are the only people who knew it was good.
Yeah.
I love her line too. I looked this up. I tried to figure out if this was true, but the publisher actually says, "Oh, Martin, yeah, everyone can read, but the book reading literate public has been declining since Gutenberg's day. Like even around the 20th century on Earth, most people didn't read a book at all." And it's like, wait, what? Like, is that real? I tried to look it up to figure it out, but she made the case like books had been declining for so long on Earth, Martin. It's like now no one reads. They just read like pop-up ads. Like the people who read, it's a tiny minority, and it's almost pornography. Like it's space truckers just opening up the old Earth 17. I'm gonna fuck this bitch. It's the
Yeah, like his books get progressively like worse and pulpier as it goes along, and
And
eventually
you can't
quits.
make a case that it's not an author just venting.
oh no, it was everything that Martin says in this section was like a knife in my heart because I'm not a published author, but as a struggling wannabe failed creative, it's like, yeah, that's how it works. It's like a random thing you make that no one cares about, that ends up being the huge
JoJo.
thing, and like, fuck you, Thupa! Fuck you! You little shit! You didn't have to fucking say it. Okay, Thupa, fine. I'm Martin now. What is the most viewed thing you've ever made? How many views have you ever gotten on a piece of media? Tell me.
It would be my racist off Twitter account that was making fun of Chinese.
Oh, okay. Exactly.
But it was viewed in the thousands, and they hated me on their local chats forums, and then they hated me so much they fucking doxed me.
Okay, so Thupa, I have like 230 something thousand lifetime views on YouTube. It's like the things I've made are orders of magnitude more seen than things you have made, and it brings me no solace at all. Like I'm talking to you, embarrassed that I did that.
And everything that I've done should be embarrassing, but the only thing only reason I don't connect it to myself is because it's gonna let me in trouble.
Yeah, and Thupa, like, I look at you, I almost envy you because you do these stupid shitposty things and you just have fun. The only people who see it are your friends. Like, I read your COVID journal, and that was like a basis for us becoming friends in the first place. Like, you just have this pure artistic thing. Like, I don't care if that many people see it, you know, all that. Where I have to, like, deal with the existential dread of, like, I made, like, just some random fucking bullshit derivative anime videos, which I cared about a lot at the time. But they're just hanging over my life now. Like, I look at the analytics for this channel now that we're doing podcasts. The residual views I get from those old videos are so much bigger than the podcast views. I don't know if they're ever going to catch up to it. It's like my past life, the ghost of it, is doing so much better than me, the actual person. Where I have zombie content that keeps growing forever, like videos that weren't even big when I released them just keep on existing and like exponentially growing up. It's like, I what the fuck do I even do?
Meanwhile, I'm fine spending 3 months composing a parody of Dante's Inferno about a VTuber, which is the greatest shitpost I've ever written just for myself because nobody has the mind capacity to even go through half of it. Yet, much less appreciate half of the thought I've put into it.
And I wish I was more like you. Jaws, please talk. Please.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's honestly the exact way how working creatively should work. I'm saying should work in quotation marks, but it's for me it's the same. Like I have written a novel, and I'm working on a second one. And the main reason why someone should make something creative, like for me at the very least, is just because you want to make
greed.
No, it's because. It's just so
shit.
Because you want to do it. Because you want to create it. That's the whole reason. That doesn't have to be anything else. It's just like your determination for it to exist has to be greater than your desire for it not to exist. That's basically all.
That's
the only thing that counts.
Yeah, that's what doing a creative thing is. It's like you have the little nugget of like sincere giving a shit and love of the craft, or not even necessarily enjoying it, but just like feeling that it's important and being into it. You have that, and then every other aspect is just you being fucking battered around by horse shit and nonsense and ego and constantly like having expectations and then not meeting them, or then meeting them and then you quit caring afterwards and all this fucking shit. Every fucking aspect of this except maybe hanging out with the people you meet doing it fucking sucks, and Thupa's even fucking that up.
I just love thinking that throughout that entire tirade, you were staring dead center at my fucking camera footage.
Look, I mean, we're making this. I'm making this about me, I guess. Like Jaws, you showed interest. Like the book I was trying to write last year. Like you showed interest in that topic, basically more than anyone else did. And like I was basically writing that with the assumption like there's gonna be like 3 people who give a shit when I make this. With you being one of them. Yeah, maybe. You don't watch your own fucking podcast, Thupa.
I try to.
I try to. Half the podcast views are me at work, I swear to God. But the fucking...
At least a third of them is me.
Okay. I mean, I actually do listen back a few times. Because I don't know.
I do as well.
Well, 1, it's fun to relive the conversation. 2, I'm trying to like find issues and get better. Like kicking Michi, instant quality, up right there. I mean, the strike killed Michi because the strike cares. But yeah, I was writing this book and it was like this esoteric thing where it was almost like a document of just like saying something that happened, and then. Like, it became more and more an ego trip, and it became more and more. And the real damning point was when I had the thought in my head, like, oh, I could actually sell this maybe. Like, if I do it a certain way, people might actually read and like this. It wouldn't just be like a fucking bizarre underground document telling people how the world works. It would actually be an entertaining piece of pop media maybe. And everything got so off the rails. I just hit a point where it's like, I don't even know why I'm writing this anymore. Because I know if I do it and people like it, I'm going to hate everyone who reads this. They're going to ruin my fucking life. They're all going to miss the fucking point. Every goddamn motherfucking one of them. Yeah, Thupa. A few people are going to get it. There's probably going to be a few hundred people who fucking kill themselves by accident by trying to emulate this. It's like, I don't know what the fuck. I don't know why it exists. And then it's like, it's not even me expressing, like, my inner life, because I don't know what this means either at this point. It's like, why am I doing any of this? And then it's like, writing is fucking horrible. It's just fucking horrible. There's no redemption. All you do is just cry as the force is controlling you, batter you back and forth, and then you get, like, 2 people, and you're like, life really is good, right, Thupa and Josh? At least we made some friends along the way.
And you know what? This is kind of the beauty of the Hyperion, because it has a bit of everything. Fuck, man. This is such an honest piece of work from an author and its perspective that you can't help but interact with it and not reflect on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, he's a writer's writer. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Other aspects as well, but that's a strong aspect. Jaws, you have any writing-related comments on the publishing process?
I can only repeat what I just said.
Okay, other than that, okay, fine.
He's not interested in your repeating things.
Well, I just went on a tear. I'm just offering, do you have anything to say? I just talked for like 10 minutes.
You're a dick. Well, since you're offering, I might as well take the opportunity.
I offered Jaws. Jaws, am I a dick?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Jaws!
Okay. Okay, but Jaws, do you have anything to add, or should we just keep talking, I guess?
Like
I made a really good penis with that Jaws line.
Thupa? Jaws is talking.
Like I said, the main thing of creative work is just doing it because you want it. That's like literally the baseline. That's just it. If that is enough for anyone, for you, for me, then you can do it, and you can basically do it forever and be happy with it, or content. At the very least, content. Like, I don't exactly enjoy writing, but I want the things I want to make. I want them to exist, and that's why I'm creating them.
Goddamn poo-poo.
Right, goddamn poo-poo.
Right, great.
What? Well, why are you talking shit now, Thupa? What? What are you thinking, motherfucker? Say it. Don't just writhe in your bed, screaming with delight as you laugh at me. Say what you're laughing about. Thupa's like on the verge of dislocating his jaw right now because he's laughing so hard. His bottom teeth are like an inch farther in than his front teeth. Okay, whatever. We'll just talk about more.
Yeah, we should continue.
Okay, anyways, the next stage of Martin's life is the next stage of Martin's life, he becomes a hack writer. He makes a very good comment where he's in with the other people doing the trashy pulp serials, and he says, you know, everyone there thinks that secretly they're the one real writer and everyone else is the hack fraud. They just happen to be hanging out because they're in between masterpieces right now. Kind of like the temporarily embarrassed millionaire. Everyone there is a temporarily embarrassed, master author. And
I swear to fucking God, one day you're going to kill me.
Have to kill Michi first. It looks like I'm visiting him in a few months. But then, as time progresses, Martin's situation becomes more and more desperate. There's a funny section where he gets involved in politics, he says, where, like, the internet, everyone is allowed to just vote on shit through the internet.
Oh, right, yeah.
So when you have a data sphere, he got addicted to the data sphere because it has it's the internet, but it contains all knowledge. It's just the perfect image of what the internet is supposed to be. And it doesn't even need connection. You can just have it in your pocket, I think. But in this world, they have referendums and people can just vote. But there's so many of them that you can just sit at your computer and just vote yes or no on things all day, every day. And you never run out of shit to vote on. So politics is just an absurd swarm intelligence where it's just crazy people who are addicted to the internet just sit at their data sphere and they just click yes and no on all these different projects all day, every day. That's how the government works, I guess. I mean, it could do worse.
It's fucking Twitter. The man got addicted to doom scrolling.
Yeah, it's ruled by internet trolls, so Thupa would be a big player in this world. And when he does this, he loses his memory of all the poems he memorized. Like all the shit Balthazar taught him as a kid, the time he spends on the internet, he just forgets everything. And he eventually gets so disgusted with himself that he trashes the data sphere, decides to never go online again, and he goes back and rememorizes all the poems he learned as a kid. That was cool, but his situation ends up so desperate that he has to take refuge in the arms of Sad Keen Billy, a delightful character who Jaws is going to describe right now, I bet.
Yeah, what little I can remember. Sad King Billy is, I think he's the ancestor of some actually nobility, from England, I think, Old Earth England, descendants from that. I think that was mentioned. And he's kind of considered a a fool, a somewhat idiotic figure, but very benevolent and extremely fond of poets and writers and artisans of any kind. And he has this kind of ludicrous, ridiculous idea to create a city of poets and of artisans on Hyperion. And so he basically collects all kinds of people, of artists, and settles them on Hyperion. They have built a city there. And it's a city basically for the one purpose of creating art there. And Martin Silenius is one of the people who goes there.
Here's the thing about King Billy, right? One, the man got rich on crypto coin. You can't convince me otherwise. It's said within the book itself that he fucking just does some shit on the internet and is immensely wealthy because of that.
Oh, cool.
Two, I really like how Martin, as always, describes him as a man who likes art, but can neither fucking walk straight, say a coherent sentence together, or fucking play any musical instrument without being so embarrassed by his own ability that nobody actually gets to listen to him.
Right. And he also stutters. So
yeah, the description of Billy is he's a very memorable character where to some extent Billy actually is neurotic and depressed and prone to negative emotion. But Martin says it's way exaggerated because just the way he moves physically makes it seem like he's having a nervous breakdown at all times. He said Billy actually laughs quite often, but Billy's laugh, it sounds like a choking sob, where he scrunches his face and goes,
Thank you.
Yeah. He Billy is just an uncoordinated oaf. How he's this powerful is weird, but that kind of foreshadows later. You learn Billy's a lot more competent than you would assume. People consistently underestimate Billy because he's such an eccentric goofball. He's Martin's best friend for 10 years. Him and Billy are great buds together in the city of poets.
Somehow that man can tolerate Martin.
Well, I think Billy's a sly character. He just understands people. Billy was he had people on another planet. It's kind of like the beginning of Dune. Billy relocates his entire kingdom to Hyperion, which seems insane, and kind of is insane, because Hyperion is known as being a deadly, mysterious place, even when things are relatively calm. Like the time tunes, there's something very weird going on with time on this planet. Billy doesn't understand it either, as far as I know. But it's unclaimed territory. It's a place he can get a lot of land and resources for his people very, very quickly. He moves there. He tries to build this paradise. The capital is Keats, but then he has this little, kind of like Versailles. He has this little enclave where all his favorite poets are there. He was a big patron of the arts. He's an interesting character, and things go well for a while. Martin has a great time. He genetically alters his body where the lower half of him is a goat.
Yeah.
He
Wait,
turns
he does?
Yeah, his Satyr
Yes.
transformation.
Yeah, he genetically modifies the lower half of his body, including his penis, and turns himself into a satyr.
I did not remember that at all.
And he stomps around with goat hooves, just being a fucking menace to society. And it specifically said there are dozens and dozens of young women who are enamored with Martin's brilliance and social position. And so he just goes around Hyperion giving young ladies the goat dick for decades on end, trying to write his poem, which is not going so well because he has writer's block.
Right.
That is, until the Shrike murders start up again. That's crazy,
and
right?
this is where I'd like to take over for a minute and then lead into my point, because what starts beginning is Shrike attacks and keeps murdering people in the city of poets on Hyperion. And this is where Martin's block disappears all of a sudden, and he goes insane and just starts writing and writing and writing. And as he does, the population of the city of poets is thinner and thinner, and one day, sad King Billy comes to confront him. And what does he say? He says, "Well, Martin, how's that poem coming along?" And then he grabs one of the pieces and tells him, "You know what? I know who's been killing them. You know who's been killing them. We've had this scene with us looking at the footage, and it's Shrike. What are you actually writing, Martin?" And Martin says that he thinks he's writing the future. And in his cantos, after which the book is named, is the future of the universe, and the way I think he sees it and is capable of writing it is by Shrike's presence near him, because Shrike distorts time. And as a thing that comes from the future that moves through the time backwards, Martin is somehow capable of perceiving that future, and via Shrike's presence is capable to perceive it and put it onto the page. Does that make any sense to you people?
That makes perfect sense. I will
He
say
also-
it real quick. If it had been anything else, Martin would have just lied. But like he doesn't play with poetry. This is the one thing he'll
doesn't
never
fuck
lie
around.
about. No, yeah, Jaws.
Yeah, he
The
also has
man's willing
this,
to die for it.
this kind of paradoxical relationship with the Shrike, because he both believes that the Shrike is his muse that enables him to write, but he also is convinced that he is the one who created the Shrike, that he is writing the Shrike and its actions and so forth. So it's like this weird paradox going on.
Which
From
gets
his
funny
perspective.
later when a character's like, "No, I created the Shrike. Fuck you."
Who was it? Who said that?
Or doesn't the character revealed to be a traitor get mad at Martin for saying that because they think not created, but they're at least responsible for it?
Responsible, yeah.
Responsible,
yeah,
but not quick.
Yeah. In case anyone was not aware, like we're just in total spoiler territory now.
You're right.
This confrontation, one thing I love is when Billy shows up, he has a little stun rod, he has a little electricity weapon with him.
Oh, that
And
thing.
with perfect comedic timing, Martin looks at him and says, "As if you would ever use a weapon." Pow!
So the next thing I knew, I was waking up and I couldn't move or something like that.
Yeah. Martin thinks he's so smart. He knows Billy for a decade, and then Billy just whoops his ass out of nowhere. Like, nope, Billy was a lot smarter than you thought, Martin. He's keen for a reason. Yeah, he's actually kind of a ditz, but he gets shit done.
When he talks to Martin about like the whole Shrike thing, he doesn't stutter. or like at some point in like the whole final confrontation or something, he like loses his stutter because he's so serious, basically.
I think the stutter is sincere. I think it's just
Yeah,
when
it's
Billy
real,
gets
but
serious, it just banishes all his
it just
quirkiness.
disappears.
It's the work mode, baby.
Yeah, he can turn it off. And yeah, there's a confrontation where, something happens and Martin gets really good at writing in those few moments. Yep.
You're
guess.
not going into spoilers on this one?
Well, I mean, what's there really to say? It's just the Shrike starts fucking up Billy, and Billy.
Yeah, but Billy is burning the poem of Martin.
Oh yeah, and then Martin is just
Lying
Don't do
there and
it.
can't move.
And the Shrike shows up and murders fucking King Billy. Or, well, takes him away.
yeah, and probably on a tree somewhere. And yeah, Martin's motivation is he's looking for the Shrike because he wants to finish the poem, and that's just the only way to do it. Probably want to go faster if we want to say anything.
Yeah, I don't think we can even finish this but yeah.
We could try the rush through the last few here. Thupa
Instead,
could leave
I
and me and
don't
Jaws
have-
could finish, or we could try to pause this and do a part 2 later.
I don't have a lot to say about Braun because I'll be honest, I was so bored through this part of the book that I just kind of fucking had it in the background as I was doing other shit and I wasn't even reading it.
Do you have a lot to say about the console?
I don't
Me
know
or
if I
Thupa?
really do. And
Do you have a lot to
I
say
liked
about
it well
Saul?
enough. I really don't know. I haven't really thought about those two. I'll be
I
honest.
don't have that much to say about Saul.
But I want to talk to you about something that does happen in the Braun part, which isn't exactly related to her. I've brought
Okay.
it up before, Green, and it's the idea of what is the goal of the Techno Core. Mm-hmm. It is to create a higher creature or higher being as they see it. Did you catch that?
Yeah, they're trying to basically create God.
Yeah, the
It's like
ultimate
Deus-
machine god.
Do
It's
you
like
think
Deus Ex.
Shrike is that god that they've created, and then it's for some reason is now traversing back in time, as it is one thing that is on Hyperion that is variable that they cannot anticipate or predict in any way? Do you
That-
think Shrike is the Technocore's god?
I don't know. I lean towards no, where Shrike is so specific in what he does, where, like, if you were God, why would you choose to be a monster made of swords? He's just so specific that it feels more like he's, I don't know, like the archangel of whatever the greater power in this world is. I don't see him being God directly. I see him being connected to it in an important way, what the Technocore are doing.
Because to me, it seems like Technocore created, if not Hyperion, that Shrike for certain. And then either the two of those are both like together that divine thing that they've made, or the Shrike is the avatar of it.
That's a
That
little
now
closer.
persist outside of the
Yeah.
time, and they have some kind of goal in the past that they need to do, and we are essentially now trying to determine how to influence that goal in the right way.
I've
Or
I've,
the present.
I've read both books. It does get explained, but yeah, since I know it and I don't want to spoil it, I can't comment on it.
Do you find his interpretation interesting?
I find it interesting, yeah.
You know, we don't have that much to talk about. We can just talk about a few piecemeal things to wrap this up, I guess. Because there's nothing super... The last 3 ones, there's not much to talk about. Like, there's a lot to talk about with Martin. There's a lot to talk about with the priest. Like, Saul... I mean, because Saul's whole thing is just, you know...
Saul is
the
very
ba-
simple, kind of.
Yeah, the baby he's been holding the whole time, he tells a story about his daughter became a researcher on Hyperion, and she
And it is a
contracted.
compelling story, by the way.
Yeah, of
and
course.
she contracted Merlin's disease and started slowly getting. She started going backwards in time.
Aging
And
backwards. Yeah.
You eventually
And,
realize,
technically
oh,
going backwards in time. Yeah.
yeah, that's his daughter. And there's just, I think we'll just say a few interesting things from each part because I think Saul is totally necessary for the book. Like his spiritual angst and his wrestling with God, his, muttering every night, trying to ask God, why would you do this? What am I supposed to do? I think that he's really necessary as kind of this grounding emotional anchor for the themes of the book. It's hard to say a lot about him, though, where it's just, Saul's just perfect. He's just not in, like, if you remove, like, masculine, like, conquering virtue from the pantheon of values, he's just the perfect man. Like, he's the perfect father, would be a good way to put it. Like, he's a gentle, kind man who tries to instill values and just is incredibly dutiful.
Yeah. Like, the two things that sum him up, basically, are, like, his dedication to his daughter as a father.
And to make her comfortable.
Yeah. And his scholarly work on Abrahamic religions. Like, that's the two things he does, basically.
And I think his scholarly work is in large part for him to help process the condition his daughter has encountered. And
he did that before, but it became after this because of his dream, of course, it kind of supercharged like his whole relationship basically with God, or his opinion and views on it.
And Saul is very, he's very holy in a lot of ways. One aspect of Saul's life, because after his daughter starts moving backwards in time, every day she lives it with the memory she had at that corresponding age in the past. And every time she goes to sleep, she wakes up with the previous day's stock of memories. So she gets younger, and Saul and his wife, they dedicate their lives to recreating their home and their environment at different stages of the daughter's life going backwards, just so that every day she can have a good day without understanding what's happening. And
because at some point, as an adult, his daughter just kind of confronts him and says, look, this is really painful to relieve the fact that I've lost a love of my life and all of these years, and they happened to me, but I can't experience them anymore. And can you help facilitate this life to me?
Yeah. Because for a while, when she's in her, 20s, she has a little recording, like 50 first dates or something like that, I don't know, where every morning she plays a recording briefing her on the situation. Oh, you're getting younger, you're going to lose these days' memories and wake up a day younger, just keep on keeping on. And eventually
and this is
she
what
gets so...
has been there and you are never going to get because you're getting younger instead
and
of
when
older.
When she's a teenager again, they just say, fuck it. Like, okay, we're just going to live every day as its own day. Saul gets in a state of mind where every day exists for its own sake, and that's it. Because even if he fucks up one day, the daughter will not remember it. So every single day he knows, I am only acting for this moment with my daughter. I just want my daughter to be happy today. She won't remember it tomorrow, but I do it for its own sake. And Saul lives like 20 years where every single day is only about the day. That's a really powerful situation. There's not much to say about it except Saul's just a good guy.
It's a powerful story.
Yeah. If you don't have anything about Saul, we can talk about Bronn real quick, where Bronn's a private. What?
We have to mention the sacrifice thing.
Oh yeah, Saul, as he goes along, both him and his wife, they eventually learn, were having the same dream, where every night a voice is saying, take your daughter whom you love and offer her as a burnt sacrifice, and saying you have to go to Hyperion. And it's like this, and he keeps thinking about the binding of Isaac and that story from the Bible. I mean, at some point you have to just say fuck it, right?
And that's kind of how he ends up on the pilgrimage.
Yeah, so he ends up on the pilgrimage.
It's like, yeah, well, and a cool aspect is Saul, the media makes Saul's life a living fucking hell. And he he sucks it up and he just says, okay, the media want to play me, I'll play them. I'll give them this sob story, and I will use my fame to get resources to help my daughter. Which is really impressive that he does that. And in the end, he bullies the Shrike Church and the government by getting on TV saying, this daughter who you've been following her story for 20 years as she gets younger, like, she's gonna die, and I believe that the only cure might be on Hyperion, but they're not letting me fucking go. And he starts a viral campaign and bullies the church into putting him on the Shrike pilgrimage. So, good for him.
Kind of.
Yeah. With Braun, and I feel like I don't have much to say about these parts. All I really have to say about Braun is, John, his situation was fucking weird.
Well, the whole concept of science.
We get introduced to proper old school sci-fi here. Because characters no longer matter. They don't have real character. They exist as vehicles for concepts. And the concepts are that there is a cloud intelligence that consists of myriads of individual computer intelligences that exist not in unison, but in cohort with each other. They have different ideas on how things should persist and exist, but they do not have unity in any measure. But within them, there exists a certain segment that have recreated the Earth in its minute fucking detail to within which this subsect, with this recreation, they now create AIs with the ideas and notions and fucking minds of historical figures
and the
and
DNA,
historical
basically. They're
figures
perfect
around
replicas.
them,
And the sperm. The sperm of John Keats.
and the sperm of
The sperm.
individuals to then try and make them into something, but they all go fucking insane because they cannot persist within the two identities they are now presented with both being the continuation of a person's life who has died and a part of super intelligence.
Yeah, I mean it's fucked up. Like imagine living John Keats's life and dying, laying in your tuberculotic bed and fucking dying as you hack up a lung, thinking about, oh, I died, but at least I got to be famous poet John Keats.
And then you wake up exactly where you died, but you're surrounded by people you have died with. But now you're John Keats, but not John Keats.
Yeah, and everyone in your life just goes, oh, we're actually robots. Or we're all part of an AI hive mind that you've now been reconnected to. Yeah, you were John Keats, but you were an AI the whole time.
And now you're John Keats again.
Because that's what the technocore needs. That's what the that's what the hive mind that is creating God needs. We need John Keats on the team. We're gonna simulate an Earth down to the atoms that were
just
and their
so we can
placement
have John Keats
in Victorian fucking England, just so we can recreate John Keats as a perfect entity, but the substructure of his mind is an AI. Then he can fucking die and just be with us as John Keats.
And
like, why would you need that?
And this is. I've mentioned this author fucking fetishizes John Keats for some fucking reason. This is a very minor spoiler for second book, Green. But in the second book, they have another John Keats persona.
Yeah.
It's from the very fucking start. It's like the first chapter. But they have another John Keats persona now.
Why do they need John Keats specifically?
They just have John. There's so much John Keats in this
like
book, and I don't get it.
It's like in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You both know it? Like, I bet Thupa does.
Well, I read it, yeah.
Do you know
I've
it?
read
Hitchhiker's...
it.
Yeah, okay. Like, where in the end in the end, it's revealed that the Earth is basically a supercomputer that's just computing the answer to everything.
Yeah.
And I think in Hyperion, it's kind of like the same thing, that it's all just this computational stuff for the AIs in their effort to create their machine
John
god.
Keats.
And John Keats is just one variable, one component in this thing, and that's why they need him. I think that's why.
But why him specifically?
I think
I
think that's tied to the Hyperion poem, the unfinished one.
I mean,
like
I
the
know,
old
but-
Hyperion thing.
That's
I mean,
what I mean.
I-
Like, why is the world made of John Keats?
I could spoil a little bit more, but I'm not going to, because
okay,
there's a little bit more to it.
I think half of the reason he exists, like, it's so funny. Martin fucking mogs on Braun by being so much smarter than her and like showing off all this poetry he knows. Then Braun gets to have the moment where looking at Martin and be like, I fucked John Keats.
I kind of understand what you're saying, Josh, but what Green is asking, why specifically did the author make John Keats the one and not like Homer from Iliad or some shit?
Because the Hyperion, the context and the content of the Hyperion poem by John Keats kind of thematically matters to the story of Hyperion.
Poem. It could have been Iliad. It could have been any other body of work. And author just like John Keats is what we're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just so weird that he's the one guy that the entire cosmos bends on.
Because Dan Simmons got inspired by the poem. That's basically it.
I get it. It's just weird. Like, it's just very hard to justify in universe that, like, God needs two things. He needs
weird, but we understand why.
Yeah, like, God needs two things. He needs a 10-foot metalloid time-bending killing machine and John Keats.
Look, you've got to
We
read
have
the
the same
second
brain
book.
cells
It
here.
will make a bit more sense if you finish both the second book.
Yeah, I will. Maybe that'll be the part 2. Maybe we'll talk a bit
I'll
more
finish
about...
it probably the next 2 days. I'm pretty close.
I'll finish it tonight. I don't know. It was adorable a while ago. I had this brilliant thought. Like, it's like, oh, we're podcasting on this day 2 weeks from now. It's like, I'm going to play Planescape Torment and finish Nier Automata in that time
Raid
frame.
World.
Yeah. I'm not... You're lucky if I finish Rain World at all at this point, you little fucking shit, Thupa. God,
I
yeah.
want to talk to you about it so bad. But
I
you've
know.
got to get to the ending.
I restarted it. I went up to Sky. I'm stuck on the deer part.
You know what?
The
You know
daddy
what?
long deer.
Fuck Hyperion for the moment because I want to vent about those fucking reindeer.
No, Thupa, no. I'm
If
just saying no. No.
there's one moment in Rain World where I am fucking furious, it's the fucking reindeer.
Yeah, they don't pay attention. Good, done. We've locked that away. We have like 10 minutes. We're not talking about Rain World. Thupa, stop. Okay. Okay. Also, I will say about Braun's story, when they hack the AI, and they have their friend BB, the master hacker, put them into the Matrix where they see a world full of, light and gems and shit, and they're like, oh, this is how the AI experience reality. This is so cool. When they lose, they just do a hard cut to BB sitting in the chair and his head has exploded.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That was really funny because the whole book has been this airy, high concept, like sci-fi masterpiece, and then they jump to the dumbest parody trope of sci-fi. Just, oh yeah, using a computer, your head exploded because it was too much math. It's like, I found it funny that he slipped that in.
Yeah, okay. What I find it interesting that he had all these concepts of like AI and the data sphere and stuff in 1989. I don't know how old this is from. I don't know when all this stuff came up for the first time in science fiction. So I don't know how far along the timeline this whole stuff happened. Like, how much did he borrow from other sources and how much was his own original stuff? Hello? Yeah, okay. For a moment, I thought the screen froze. So
No, Green is doing something.
Yep.
And I'm starting to get ready to go myself, actually.
To move on to the next world.
Yeah, I'm sure. You know what? Maybe we'll talk about the maybe we'll open with the console and the reveal there if we talk about the second book. Real quick, because we're approaching the end. Now, we've talked about fucking everything in this book. I will say, I wanted to focus on the priest and Martin anyway, so it worked out. I will say about Braun, it's funny that she's named Braun, and it's also funny that the author fetishizes her so much, where it's very clearly the author just getting off on his fetishes. Where I didn't realize that Braun was not super tall. I thought that her people were very tall in addition to being strong.
I kind of mentioned her short.
Yeah, I thought she was tall though, and she's not. She's just like
they're like
slightly
squat.
shorter
They're
than
like
an
squat,
average.
muscly because of the high gravity stuff.
Yeah,
I
they're like
thought she was
dwarves.
just kind of fucking just small for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, she's just slightly shorter than the average woman, not that much. But she's on a planet where they have higher gravity, and everyone from this planet is obscenely strong to the point where they're almost where they're almost like a different subspecies. Is it Lussix?
Lucis.
A Lucian. Where if you see someone who's short and kind of stocky, sometimes you can notice they're a Lucian, and if you do, you just know not to get in a fight with them. They're almost a different species. Not quite, but almost in terms of just their physicality. And there's two things I think this is a fetish. One, there's a scene where Braun beats up a bunch of people naked. She has just had sex with John Keats, the AI clone. And she is completely naked, commenting on the psychological ramifications of being naked in this situation, beating up a bunch of thugs who came to kill John. One of them, she picks up a bed frame and crushes his skull with it, which that was interesting.
I do not remember that.
Or then when she's in the framing device and everyone's getting mad at Martin, there's like a point where she basically grabs Martin by the neck and like lifts him off the ground and just says like, I'll break your fucking neck if you don't shut the fuck up. And we know Martin is kind of the author's stand-in. So I think the author's just kind of getting off on what if this really strong woman just like grabbed my fucking neck, and I'm just thinking like, oh, this woman fucked John Keats as she's choking me to death, and it's like, okay,
it might be.
I'm being cuckolded by John Keats as a woman fucking strangles me. Like that's what he wants in life.
I'm listening.
As all of us do. We want to be cuckolded by Victorian authors. Oh, and she's pregnant too. She's pregnant from the clone. It's like I want I want to be strangled by a muscly woman who is pregnant with a Victorian
minus
poet.
that part.
Okay, like that's. There's a lot of fetishism in this. I'm just
muscly
going to
short
say that.
woman be dominant. Yeah, I'm into that.
It's weird that she's not tall because you would think it would be an Amazonian thing, you know.
No, because of the gravity. It's just an effect of the gravity.
I get it's because of the gravity. I'm just saying the fetish, you would assume they need a low gravity world where people are allowed to grow to 50% larger than they should. Oh, the ousters.
They mentioned
that's
that
the
about
other
the
fetish.
ousters.
I bet the second book there's a bunch of sexy ouster women.
I like shorter women because I can hang something over their head and they can never reach it without punching me first.
Oh yeah, that's because you can take so many punches, Thupa.
I really can. It's really painful to punch me. There are a lot of bones. I am like a shrike.
It looks like Thupa has the cruciform on him. It's just his skeleton. It's just his sternum.
Yeah.
Look, the other day there was this fucking video I watched about VTubers talking about their breasts and how they're soft or fucking. Those were male VTubers, by the way.
Thank you.
Talking about how their fucking breast muscles are like firm and whatever not. And I was like, I just tried and I was like, this is ribcage. There's no muscle here. It's just ribcage.
I mean, I have some muscle. It's buried under layers of fat. It's how that goes.
I don't have fat. I have bones everywhere. I'm like Shrike.
Made of quicksilver.
Okay, well, we're approaching the end. I think we will just save. We all love this book, right?
Yeah, it's like top 3 books for me. Like I'm not sure, might be number 2.
Thupa's already partway through the second one. I'm gonna need a little time to do the second one, but we'll just do this. We'll do a part 2 to this. No one will care. It'll just be for us, like Martin.
Right.
And I think we'll start with the console then. I mean, does anyone have any thoughts over... Yeah.
Closing thoughts on Braun. The main thing that gets revealed through her story is the three different AI factions. I forgot their names, like the stables, the something,
It's like
and the
the
something.
progressives.
I understand what you're talking. Three
and
factions within technical, right?
Right, and the real all three factions are in favor of creating the god AI thing, but two of the factions are rivals, and the thing they are disagreeing about is if humanity should be destroyed or if it should be kept intact, and that's like the ultimate conflict within the AI. And as things currently stand, the faction that's wanting to destroy humanity seems to be winning out over the other one, and that's like the big ass galaxy-spanning danger right now that the AI might decide to go on a course to eradicate all humanity.
Goddamn poo-poo.
Goddamn poo-poo.
Goddamn poo-poo. Yeah. And we'll talk about the console as a lean in. Should we talk about the literal last scene in this book? Which
right. We have to.
Oh
my god, it's so good.
My favorite ending to a book ever.
To anything ever, yeah. It's so
almost
perfect.
fucking Dance Macabre.
It's so perfect.
For some reason, I just couldn't banish that fucking scene from Seventh Seal where in the end they're like just holding hands as death leads them.
It's
out.
Perfect. I mean, they have a scene. They figure out who the traitor is. They decide they don't care, and I don't blame them. Like at this point, we have much bigger problems than one guy.
It really doesn't fucking matter at this point.
It's like Martin kind of says that too. He's like, who gives a shit? We're all fucking assholes. Let's go to the strike.
And he still gives him the most shit for being traitor.
Yeah, he still
every
does.
opportunity.
Yeah. It's really, there's a very good scene, and we'll talk about it, where they reveal the traitor, and it's very tense for a moment. Kassad is thinking about killing him, but then Saul and then Braun get up, go over, and hug the traitor because they understand why he did it, and they just all kind of cry in a little pile and just kind of reconcile. That was wonderful, because Saul has the moral authority to do that. No one can fuck with Saul. He's the prophet, you know? Then they all get on this massive stone staircase, and they're starting to head down to the Shrike's Valley, and they hear Saul singing to the baby a little song from a very old movie that he likes, and they all just kind of go, oh my god, what is that? And Martin, who's from Earth, goes, I remember that, but that's old as shit. That's crazy. I barely know that. And they all just hold hands, and they start singing a song as they mosey down the path. Thupa, do you know what the song is?
I don't remember, actually.
They go, we're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. If ever a wonderful whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz was one because of the wonderful things he does. Do. And Martin joins in, and he has a very good singing voice, and they all just saunter down the way.
Of course Martin has a good singing voice. Of course he would.
It's
all the people.
It's such a beautiful ending because much of Hyperion, the novel, is so. Well, I don't want to say anti-human, but so dark and inhuman. That's the word I actually wanted to use. And then we have this beautiful ending of all these people who don't actually like each other and sometimes hate each other. And they're all walking side by side, and the priest, Lena, is playing his instrument to the song, and they're just singing the song. And that's how the book ends. It's this one giant moment of empathy and humanity in this book that has so many inhuman things in it and so many horrible things in it. And even if the story would not have continued, I would still think it's absolutely perfect.
I'd be a little disappointed.
I don't have a single bad thing to say about this book.
I would have been a little disappointed if we didn't learn what happened to these people. But as someone who usually really doesn't like ambiguous endings, I would have been like 95% okay if this was just the end of the book. And I just love it. It's a great ending because it's perfect where yeah, they don't like each other, but they're just coming together for this moment. They're in it together, and they just have each other now. Like, whatever happens, they're in this together.
And it's so
And-
fucking ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and it's
It's
also
a bit ridiculous, but
it's
still
it's
perfect.
kind of the mystical aspect of the book again. It's like when you're going to meet your maker or your unmaker, you're going into the unknown, you're facing a terrifying mystery. All you can really do is like just project the dream of, like the lighter, better side of the mysterious, and that's all you can really do. It's like, you know what? Facing the unknown is terrifying and horrible and usually doesn't work out, but there's a part of it which is whimsical and fun, and there's hope with it too. So we're off to see the wizard.
All right.
Yeah.
The great and terrible one.
All right.
Yep. Okay.
I hope he gives you braids.
Okay.